All right, hold on one second. How do I record? Hey, Christina, are you there?
Yep, it's all the way from
Record on the
bottom.
cloud.
Yep.
On the cloud. All right, you guys are good to go. We are live.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tom, and welcome everybody. This is our second committee meeting for the bonding subcommittee of the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. That's a mouthful. I want to welcome you all today. We have another group of agencies that we're going to meet with and work with and hear from. And I think we have the library, desk, corrections. We have a great list today. So I'm just going to turn it right over to my co-chair to see if there's any welcoming and opening remarks so we could get started.
Well, just good, happy Monday. We've got a large list of people today, expanded list. So I'm just looking forward to hearing what the other agencies have to offer. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Moore. Senator Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking forward to hearing what the agencies are requesting and what their needs are, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Terrific. Last but not least, Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking forward to the afternoon. Happy Holy Week, happy Passover, happy spring. Thank you.
Great. Everybody's so happy for a Monday. Okay, well, well, let's get started. And I think we have the library first, right, Tom? Who do we have here from the library? If everybody could just introduce themselves.
Correct. The library is next. They are in the room, so I'll let them do the talking. I don't want to.
Okay.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. My name is Deborah Schonder. I'm the new state librarian. With us today are Dawn Laval, who is responsible for our construction grant process. We also have Jay Yasinski from DAS, who is our budget analyst, and my secretary, Jane Bodewin, is here to attend as well. So if you're ready, I can just start with my brief remarks and then we can move into questions. So as you can see from the documents that are in front of you, the State Library provides grants to public libraries on an annual basis for construction projects that either improve or expand, create or expand existing space. We have 191 public libraries here in Connecticut, and many of those face infrastructure and other needs, such as there are things like aging facilities, roof leaks, entrances and restrooms that may not be ADA compliant. And then in addition, libraries continue to be key spaces for their communities. So a library that was built in 1950 was probably thinking about where are we going to store all of the books, not where can we be a community space, where can we have meeting rooms, where can we have computer terminals, things like that. So we have a lot of libraries across the state that need this refresh in terms of their facilities. And with the grant program, we provide up to 1/2 of the cost of a construction project that is capped at $1 million per program. And then with that, the local library will also raise local funds to either meet the match or to provide the rest of the funding. And since 1994, we have provided funding for 111 projects across the state. We currently have 32 of those projects in process, and 7 are currently obtaining that local funding, which I talked about. So due in large part to COVID, there were a number of libraries in the last year, in the last grant process, that had intended to apply for grants and didn't, but we are anticipating that they will be applying in this next year. And we typically average about 11 applications per year, and each project averages just under $500,000 per project that we grant. So typically it's about $5 million per year that we anticipate giving out to those programs. In addition to the construction grants, we had also requested approximately $10 million to build our own new facility. This would be a partnership between the state library and then academic libraries across the state. In addition, this is in addition to public libraries needing upgrades to their facilities, so do our academic institutions in the state library. So moving together in a project would allow us to basically make sure that we're not duplicating resources, and then also preserve valuable materials that we are keeping for historical research, legal purposes, et cetera. And that would allow us to then use some of our own internal spaces for some of these community needs. So that's just a quick overview of the couple of things that we have before you today, and we would be happy to answer any further questions that you have.
Thank you, Deborah. And I'm waiting. I don't see any hands yet, so I could ask a couple of quick questions just to clarify. So I see $9 million in unallocated. Those are the grants that the libraries were not able to apply for because of COVID.
So I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to turn it over to Dawn just in case I say anything incorrect. We have currently about $3 million of that are for those projects that have been approved but have not yet been allocated because they're currently raising their funds. And we typically have about a $5 million layover per year. Am I saying that correct, Dawn?
Yes, that's correct. It's correct with the projects. We only offer the construction grants once a year. It's a one-year cycle. Every June, we ask for a notice of intent for libraries to apply for our construction grants. They in turn turn in their applications by October 1st, and at the November State Library Board meetings, that they approve the project. So it's a year cycle. They have up to 3 years to raise their local matching funds. For example, a project of $1 million. The last project that we had raised $38 million in their local community. So it is a process for them to raise the matching funds for the grant that we give them. We had projects that were due to be applied for in 2020. Those were, however, put on hold. And we're expecting, as Deborah said, about 11 applications, looking at 5 to 6 $1 million projects for the 2021 fiscal year, the 2022 fiscal year.
Great. And how do they know about the grant opportunities? You must have a library network distribution list that you send to.
Yes, absolutely. We have we do multiple notices on our listservs, and we do information sessions throughout the year. We announce it at our State Library Association meetings, at any opportunity that we have. So and the libraries in the state are well aware of this wonderful program, and they deeply appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank
now,
you.
Are you new?
I started in January, yes.
Okay. Well, at least somebody got a job in January. That's great.
I am very happy. I'm very pleased to be here.
Welcome, and glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
So I just, I live in Bridgeport, and we have 5 libraries, and I've been able to get funding for 2 while I've been in the Senate for bonding. Have you seen an increase or decrease in the amount of requests for bonding?
This particular year, there were fewer applications because of COVID, but we anticipate that that is just going to be held over for the next year. I think that a lot of libraries are reconsidering their space, thinking about how they can be more the community center, making sure that they can be social distance in the future. And so I think that we will see a lot of libraries in the next couple of years who are thinking about this as another opportunity to continue the changes that they have been going through because of COVID. It's been a good opportunity for them to reassess what are the long-term goals? What do we want our library to look like in the future? What services do we want to provide? Because I think historically, we're probably all used to the idea of the library being books, it's physical collections. And I think that for many people, they've realized that libraries are people. Libraries are a community center. It's not so much just that physical space in terms of the physical resources that we provide, but what is it about this as a place that people come to, and how can we maybe reconsider what that idea of place is with COVID and then also moving forward. Dawn, was there anything you wanted to add on that one?
No, you said it very eloquently.
Thank you. That was a segue into my second question, is how libraries are being used, different from my day, as with the card and the Dewey Decimal System and going in, getting hardcover. People use it as community events and for education. I actually have a file archived in Bridgeport for my nonprofit, where they're archiving materials for African American organizations in Bridgeport. So it's really quite different. My last question would be, about the technology. So can the libraries apply for bonding for technology to upgrade?
That is not something that is part of this particular process, although you may have heard with the recent passage of ARPA, we will be receiving funds from the federal government, and that will be it will be given out to public libraries specifically for things like Wi-Fi, connectivity, and Dawn and I are currently finalizing the details on that and how to distribute it out to the public libraries. And also it will be able to it can be used for things like digital collections. We've seen obviously a significant spike in downloadable materials, electronic materials, and so we're wanting to add things like workplace development, new materials that people can check out electronically, either from their public library or from the state library. And so I think that you're absolutely right. People are rethinking what library services look like, and then how technology can play into that. Because I think for most of our libraries, the technology was retrofitted into those spaces and the work that we do. And this is an opportunity to really build that into how we are doing it. So I don't believe that you could spend it on, say, a new server, but you could build a new computer lab, or you could build a new space where that technology could be used, or a new virtual space, and use the funds in that way. Am I saying that correctly, Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm double checking with Dawn because this is still new to me. I want to make sure I'm sharing all of the correct information with you all.
So this is a great opportunity that you have in front of you to really address the needs of the community with some of the funding you're getting from the recovery, Rescue Act. Well, so thank you, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. We have other projects for libraries going on in Bridgeport also. So thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely,
Madam
I look forward to it.
Great, thank you, Senator Moore. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Debbie and Dawn, thank you for coming and sharing your needs with us today. I'm from Bristol, and I can say that we have a very beautiful library here in the community, and they've done some renovations. So I don't know, maybe 5 or 8 years back, and it's the expansion was absolutely beautiful. And we address those community needs because we have a few community rooms in that new part of the library, and it's used considerably. So I see the good use that the funds are being placed regarding our library here in Bristol. Anyway, I do have just a couple questions. I'm new to the committee, the subcommittee, not the committee as a whole. So we're going to be learning from you today. So I'd like to know regarding you say that you have grant money that you share, or you provide grants to various communities. Is there a specific ask this year for an amount, or are you using unallocated funds that's sort of banked up right now?
It's both. We currently have some unallocated funds that we're wanting to put toward new projects. And then part of the request was a renewal of those funds for these projects moving forward.
Okay, and do you know the specifics on that, how much that is?
We currently have approximately just under $10 million in unallocated funds that we anticipate using in either this fiscal year or in the next fiscal year. And then the request was for an additional $10 million over the next 2 years, in part because we average approximately $5 million in grants per year.
So is that different than the ask for the shared library preservation?
It is. So that would be an additional request. That one was not included in the governor's proposal, but we're always saying if there's always money left over, we're happy to ask for it. So that one would be a separate project. That would be a partnership between the Connecticut State Library, the Connecticut colleges and universities, and Uconn, which would allow us to build a new facility for ourselves that we could store some of our lesser used materials that we want to keep for historic purposes. And that would allow us to clear out some of that space within our current spaces so that we could also do something like this internally, thinking about our usage, our space usage as well.
So multiple shared, a brand new building shared by 3 or 4 different entities all that
Correct.
belong to the state of Connecticut.
Yes, and
And
the advantage of that, I apologize, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
The advantage of that is we may have duplicate materials, for example. So if we were able to move some of these materials into one space, we wouldn't need for Uconn and the State Library and another university all have a copy of a particular book or have a resource that we could do. And so it would allow us to reduce some of our collections while also making it accessible to everybody in this location. And that would, again, free up space.
So how does that work regarding how big the size, first of all, the scope of the work, how big the building, and who puts together the cost of that building?
I was not involved in that. Jay, do you happen to have any information on that?
No, I don't. I could look over some of my notes when I briefly spoke about this to Maureen, our interim, for you. I could get on that.
So could you also find out too, if your ask is 10 million for that, is that the completed cost, or is that just a startup, such as your soft costs of designing and getting some preliminary information? I think if you know, there are two different things there, because if it's a 10 million ask for a completed project versus, okay, this is the initial request.
Sure. I believe it was for the completed project, but I will confirm that. I actually have a meeting with our former interim state librarian tomorrow, so I will double check on that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Senator Martin. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chairwoman Boer, and thank you, Deborah, for being here. Welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you in the state. Look forward to future in-person opportunities for sure. Just kind of following up on Senator Martin's question, actually I wanted to clarify, are there other state library needs that have been requested beyond this shared preservation facility, or is that the main capital needs with the state library?
We had also requested funds to upgrade our Middletown Library Service Center, which is one of our locations. It's essentially a library for libraries. We have professional development materials there. This is where we offer training for our librarians across the state. We have a large collection to support particularly young adult and children's collections. And so this way, one particular public library doesn't have to have all of those materials themselves. They can request them for us for things like story time, puppet shows, and then also to support schools that have summer or academic reading programs, because one class might be reading one particular book, which would require 30 copies of a particular item, and it would be a burden on the particular public library or the school library to have that just for one-time use. And so we have a large collection there that allows us to loan out those materials to libraries across the state. And the facility there is in need of some repairs, and so we had put in a request. I believe, Jay, you can correct me on this, I think it was about $400,000 to repair that facility or upgrade that facility. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. And thank you for sharing, how that facility is used. Is there also state library resources, I'm just thinking technology wise, that are shared across libraries? And is that something that you also need capital for, or is that a separate budget item for you?
That is a separate budget item. We have the Research It collection of databases, which will allow everyone across the state to access certain databases, and that comes out of the general budget process.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that, Deborah. Very, very helpful. And as someone, who dreamt about being a librarian as a kid, I particularly appreciate what you and all of our fellow librarians are doing across the state, especially in this crisis. And as Senator Moore said, you are the epitome of community, and it's really great to hear how you kind of see our future moving forward for so many of our communities as well. So thanks, Deborah.
Thank you. And anytime you want to come and visit and pretend to be a librarian for the day, you can come.
Love it. Love it. Be happy to. Thank you.
Then we'd have to be quiet though.
Oh, we don't do that anymore. It's all changed.
Okay, good. Senator Moore.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I just had a follow-up question to my original. So the cap is $1 million that the state will provide for a library. Do you find that amount, and it might be too soon for you to figure that out right now, but is that sufficient? Considering the cost of goods and everything else for today's economy, is that $1 million sufficient?
I think that's a really great question. Dawn, do you have any thoughts about that?
That's Senator Moore, that's an excellent question. And I think that's something we might want to revisit. For $1 million, most of our projects, that is sufficient. But we do in our larger communities like Bridgeport, New Haven, Stanford, where costs and also the size of the library does call for more investment. We have found that libraries have been able to meet the match for their local funding to balance it out. So at this time, I would say it is sufficient, but I think it's something that might need to be revisited in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
My pleasure.
Great, thank you. Representative Yacarino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Deb and Dawn, for being here and what you do. Of course, we all love libraries. As far as state and federal funding, do you have any other sources of funding? The Carnegie Foundation, do they still donate or other, any other sources to the libraries?
We do receive a significant amount of federal funding as well, which does require matching funds from the state. Dawn, I believe that's just over $2 million a year. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so we do make sure that we put that to use. That goes for things like part of our delivery program. It pays for additional personnel, and we do apply for a number of grants for various programs within our archives and public records departments in particular. I have been extremely impressed in the couple of months I've been here, the breadth and the variety of grants that we seek out. So we're currently seeking grants for a number of different projects. We have one right now that is looking at court records from New Haven for African Americans during, I want to say, the Revolutionary era, but I could be wrong about the era. And we are also looking for ways to expand that. And so we do seek, we have, in addition to the federal funds that we receive every year, we have the ARPA funds that are coming in this year. And then we seek out quite a lot of grants, and we're very successful with our grants. We're often seen as a model in terms of our application and the projects. The Connecticut State Library is often looked to by others in the country as an example, and this construction grant project is actually one of those. This is something that others will be looking for as well.
I think that's wonderful. No, but so does the Carnegie Foundation, I know they started giving over 100 plus years ago, millions of dollars to the libraries across the country because of Andrew Carnegie couldn't use a library as a boy. Are they still giving?
That is a really good question. I know that a number of our libraries across the state are Carnegie libraries. Jay, do you know if we continue to receive any Carnegie funds?
I don't believe so. But I could double check.
That's all right. I was just curious. But I'm glad you're utilizing other forms of funding, and obviously it's such an important part of our society. The library, it's a meeting place, it's an educational place, and it's just a social place. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
I recently read a book that's called Palaces for the People, and the author talks there about how libraries and some other community groups are the soft infrastructure. And I really liked that term. It seemed like a really good way to phrase it.
They're so vitally important. It's true that Andrew Carnegie could not use libraries because he was too poor as a boy. So before he died, he gave up, for over 100 years, hundreds of millions of dollars.
And they're beautiful facilities too.
Yeah. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Cheers.
Sure. Thank you, Representative Yacarino. And I don't see any other hands for questions or comments. I also want to thank you. I'm someone who took my son to library time every Saturday morning, made friends with families that we're still close today. So it's really a community atmosphere. And best thing about the library is it's free, right?
Exactly.
And we actually, we have a veterans hospital here in West Haven, and the library down the street. So it's been instrumental for, because veterans come from all over to this veterans hospital and their families as well. And they've been able to gather at the library. So it serves many, many purposes. So thank you very much. Anything you want to, any parting words besides?
No, thank you. I appreciate all the support, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Great, and welcome again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Tom, I think we have
next
Des.
up, yep,
Next.
we have Des. They should be in here. They are in here. Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Ravel is in here.
Okay. I don't see the commissioner on Zoom, but I'm sure.
He's here. Yep. He's got his, he's ready to go, I think.
Okay, all right. Well then, Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Representative, and good afternoon, Senator Moore, Representative Boyer, distinguished members of the General Bonding Subcommittee, and we'd also like to thank the governor for his consideration for DES, Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. With me today are my CFO, Rosemary Peschka, who's also on. Behind me is Scott DeVico, my executive assistant, and my chief of staff, Major Harbeck. So, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to the questions, and if I can't answer them, we will follow up with answers for you.
Great, thank you. You know, Eric or Tom, it would be great if somebody did a share screen. Are you able to share screen but still have everybody be able to speak?
Yeah, we should be able to. Do you need something to be brought up?
I think, you know, that the lead page for each agency. So for example, for DESC, right, we have the operations, the school security, that lead page, just so everybody has it in front of them. And
Eric, do you have that on you?
Yes, it's page 4 of the packet.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe this will help. So, but now I can't see the hands, but I did see Nicole. I did see Representative Clarice Dietrich's hand go up before I went to screen
If
share.
you hit Rep Boer, if you hit participants, you could still see it. Click on the participants.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
No, not when I'm share screening.
Oh, okay. Because I can see it. I can tell you who has some questions.
Yeah, I could see it typically, but not when I'm share screening.
Yep.
So,
You have Rep Clarice Dietrich that has a question.
okay.
Followed by Rep Piscopo.
Okay, I'm up. Sorry. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for being here today. One of my questions is, can you give me an explanation of what the Land Mobile Radio Network is?
Yes, I can. The Land Mobile Radio Network is actually a statewide network that's shared by not only the Connecticut State Police, but it's also shared among 71 different partners, municipalities, and public. We actually give this away for free, which means if a municipality wants to get onto the Land Radio Network, which services police, fire, EMS, they would have to buy their own equipment. We would supply the backbone for that. So it's a very robust system. To date, I think we've saved municipalities about $20 million. 71 partnering agreements already, which is a 100% increase from the last time I came here. So that system's moving along very well.
And then you said approximately 71 municipalities use the system?
71 partners, which could mean several different partners within a municipality, a fire, a police, or an EMS. Yes, 71 different ones besides the state police, and it's also the backbone for DESC.
And have you seen a trend over the years of more and more municipalities and areas wanting to add on to this with you?
Oh, yes. The trend has been tremendous, actually. Like I said, it's a 100% increase from last year or a little more. It really provides a cost savings for municipalities.
And besides the cost savings, what's the benefit of using this radio network?
Well, the state maintains the network, so we are actually the provider of the network, so the municipalities do not have to go out and get that network. We provide it, we service it for the long term, and we make it available.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Great seeing you today.
Nice seeing
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Clarice Dietrich. Let's see, who do we have? Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Commissioner. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It seems that you've made requests for school construction. For school security. There's a line item here for school security, 5 million unallocated balance and the governor has recommended 5 and 10 million respectively over the next 2 fiscal years. That kind of strikes me as odd that the governor would step up and give you more than you've even requested.
The school safety grants comes out yearly. And this year, besides the direct safety aspect to local schools and also daycares, it actually expands $5 million for what's called interoperability. With that interoperability, very briefly, it tells municipalities who are implementing security efforts in their schools or other areas that they have to have some connection to law enforcement. And just briefly, in terrible situations within schools or other areas, these situations are over in 10 to 12 minutes. And really, the person committing these things plans these. They know how to get onto the facility. They either have in mind suicide or a suicide by an officer. And now we're seeing that they flee. So it's the interoperability. It's that connection to law enforcement before 911. So you're actually telling law enforcement something is amiss or wrong in your school. So that's the other 5 million.
Thank you. And then it strikes me again in your alterations line item and renovations. The governor seems to have given you a lot more than you requested there in both fiscal years. So just strikes me as curious. It usually goes the opposite way with an agency.
And Rosemary, let me ask you a quick one just to follow up. There's 5 on top of the 5 for school funding plus the 5 million for interoperability. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're only going to initiate 5 million for the school safety and 5 million for the interoperability.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Piscopo. Senator Needleman.
Madam Chair, how are you, Commissioner?
Fine, sir. And yourself?
I'm fine. I've been wanting to schedule some time with you just to go over a few things, but I did want to put in a plug for the radio system. The folks that built that out, it's a great thing for the towns. Fire departments, not having to maintain our own equipment, our own equipment up on towers is just a tremendous opportunity for the smaller municipalities to work. And the fact that you're not charging for it makes it even better. Always the anticipation that at some point there may be a charge, but it's still probably worth it. And we're in the middle of working on the conversion now. I did want to bring up something probably a bit unrelated to your presentation today, but maybe if you had a few extra dollars in the governor's budget, you could help us. The resident trooper towns obviously have been hopefully waiting for a positive word on body cameras from the department. All of our constables are interoperable through our radio system with the state police. And some of us actually have dash cams that are, were bought through the state police. And I was hoping, I'm not looking for anything for free here. And I know there's a staff shortage in the department. I was actually hoping, and I think a lot of the trooper towns were hoping, that for a per officer fee, we would be able to buy dash cams and have them be on your system. It doesn't make practical sense to have a separate system for cameras, storage and redacting. It would be so much better if we could work that through you and with the department. I did speak to the colonel, who was very gracious about it, but I think the issue comes down to your staffing. So again, not asking for anything for free, but I really wish that there was an opportunity to rethink that decision.
I think that's actually why you wanted to spend a few minutes with me, Senator.
Yes.
And we can talk about it and talk it through a little bit. Realistically, it's not the cost of the actual recording device. It's not so much the cost of the storage. It's actually that desk would be the holder of all the records, which puts us into a FOI requirement, of which we're 250 deep already. And it's not someplace I don't think a town wants to be either, waiting in line for that. So that's far more conversation needs to be had in that area, and maybe in some legislative change later on.
Well, I'm very sympathetic to that. Obviously, we've had no FOI requests for camera footage for 5 years. We've had one since I've been first selectman in my town. Some towns get a lot more. Some officers tend to be prone, and that may be part of the genesis of the law. No one knows if there are going to be frivolous lawsuits, but I think the way I would have recommended doing it is whatever the charge is for the storage, we'd buy our own equipment, but maybe we come up with, as part of our trooper cost, a per hour cost for recovery and redacting, because it's not free. We're going to be paying for it anyway. It would just, because the department's demanding interoperability, we need, we're already under the gun. And as you probably know by now, there are a lot of providers that are putting a literal gun to the municipalities' heads in terms of the cost to just store the data. It's not cheap, and I don't think we're going to be able to comply in time, because we were all waiting to find out what the state police was going to do, and we just got the letter 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so our resident trooper is actually our employee, so we handle those folks. It's those constables I think you're referring to.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
And like I said, we already have dash cams. We've had them for a long time that are on your system, and we haven't had any issues or any requirement to recover since we had VCRs. So I'd love to take it offline. Don't want to take up people's time, but I'd welcome the opportunity to come up to Middletown, sit down and talk with you, and just see if there's a compromise that we can work out here. Again, nobody should be asking for this for free, because some towns have 20 constables and some towns have no constables, and there should be a fee for it. But because of the interoperability requirement, it would just make sense if you guys did it.
We can have that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. It's a very good conversation. Please keep the entire committee apprised of what the results are of that conversation, and if there's bonding, if there's funding that needs to be provided through bonding for such a program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not quite lost on the funding, but I'd like some clarification. So first, I'm assuming we're dealing with what we used, I think we call, is the nutmeg network? Is this the fiber optic network that was put together with federal funds that we're working on the connectivity to schools? Is the physical connectivity part of this budget, or is the software for the $5 million?
The nutmeg, you are correct. The nutmeg network is the fiber loops around the state. When we talk about interoperability and the connection for that 5 million, that's how you transfer information from a school, from a daycare facility, from those who can qualify, probably to a law enforcement agency.
Is it basically physical connectivity is what we're working on there, which is fine. Is it software or physical connectivity? What are we funding?
It would be software, and it would also be hardware.
Hardware. So they're basically, it's connecting them and the appropriate software. Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that the utilization increased by about 100%.
The utilization of the
network,
the LAN network, the mobile radio network has increased by 100% from local municipalities to move towards participation.
Okay, but that's not the fiber optic network we're talking about this second.
That's correct. Those are the towers and the radio system.
Okay. Now I'm sitting on energy and technology. I don't have purview of the Acorn. I was hoping for a little information not relevant to this conversation. So I appreciate this. So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Meskers.
Thanks for the promotion.
There you go. Depends on how you look at it. Representative Yakarino.
I agree with you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to thank you and your men and women for what you do every day for us to protect us, keep us safe. Just a question. I don't see him.
You don't see who?
The Commissioner.
Oh, he's there.
Oh, Commissioner. The school security money, the 5 million, then potentially 5 to 10 million. I know in the past towns had to apply for a grant. Is that for locks, cameras, glass? Is that what that money's for? Besides the radios?
Yes, that's the infrastructure. Yes.
And they would have to apply for that, obviously. And that's between all the municipalities. And I know our town applied the first year, and then I think the Board of Ed or the first Selectmen's Office forgot to apply the next round. But as long as you apply for it, obviously you meet that criteria, you're eligible. Is that correct?
It's a competitive grant. Actually, you'll see this year's being put out in a short time.
Thank you. And as far as the radios, I know in our town of North Haven, we have a school security plan. So does that qualify for the network, or does that qualify, give you a leg up for the potential grant if you apply for it? We have a plan between the police, fire, and our school system.
Yeah, there's no connection between the radio system, which the town could try to get onto, and the school security.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Yakarino. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Hi, Commissioner. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just a follow-up on what some of my colleagues have asked so I understand it clearly. You had noted that in the request, there was the $5 million, which is Representative Yakarino said that's what schools would apply for. And then the governor had included 5 million additional for what you referenced was interoperability. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So the 5 million additional requested by the governor, is that necessary for that first 5 million to work? I'm trying to understand how these work together or not, these requests.
Actually, they're two different grants, but they could work together depending on how the town set that up.
So can you describe to me then a little bit what that would look like? So when you mentioned interoperability, I'm trying to understand why that would be required beyond what the schools would be getting from, their capital requests.
So most of our schools put in for such things as automatic door closers, locking devices, physical security. Where the interoperability portion of it is more technology based, meaning how about 911 software based on somewhat of what you have for your car, just a button for your car. And that would connect not only to the police department, that's the interoperability portion of it. If they chose a radio system to connect to the police department, that could be interoperability too, or the transfer of video. A lot of our schools do have operational video in real time, and that could be transferred to either a police department or to officers' phones as they respond.
Okay, so the interoperability dollars, would those only be available to those schools that are applying for the capital projects? They're kind of that other 5 million. I'm trying to understand again, kind of how those would work together or not.
So they're actually separate. So one is not dependent on the other.
Okay.
So a school can apply for both, or they can choose to apply for just one.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for clarifying that. And then I know we've had discussions in past sessions around security funds for nonprofits beyond schools. Can you kind of update us on where we are in bonding for nonprofits and who's been funded thus far, and any recommendations you have for that program moving forward?
So the $5 million grant proposal went out publicly to nonprofits, houses of worship, and it just closed, as a matter of fact. And that one went out first because it coincided with a federal grant program also in the same area. So at first glance, after they closed, I have over 387 applications. They range anywhere from $5,000 to the maximum of $50,000. And rough numbers are 60% of the asks are between $40,000 or the top 50,000. So there was a lot of interest in this houses of worship and nonprofits.
And are there matching requirements for them?
Right. So this one's only up to $50,000 per house of worship or nonprofit. And I pause because some of this can be advanced, but they would have to pick up anything over the $50,000.
I see. Well, wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner, for that update. I'm sure we'll be seeking more information as that continues to roll out.
We'll have it for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Farrar. Senator Moore.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, and thank you, Madam Chairman. Chair, I'm sorry, I had to jump off and I'm back on. If I'm repetitive, I apologize. But I'm going to follow up on Representative Farrar's question regarding the nonprofit security grant program. So you had 387 applicants, and they could get up to $50,000. But it was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they couldn't apply for the federal and the state. Is that correct?
No, they could apply for both. The federal one would reduce the state one and vice versa, but the federal one is not nearly as robust as the state.
So the max was $50,000 regardless of where you're getting it from?
Yes.
A combination?
That's correct.
And so where do we stand now in the way of availability of funds?
Just from the preliminary numbers, Senator, our applications will far exceed our ability, our $5 million.
It will. Do you know how far? I mean, how many over? Because if we've got these other applications pending, and it is competitive, they won't be able to get the funding. Is that correct?
If they don't qualify, or we have to break it up, they won't qualify.
My question really was, so if you have that many applicants and you don't have enough funding, and it's competitive. The others will not be able to get the funding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And have you put in for additional funding for that program?
Not yet, no.
Did you intend, is your intention to put in for additional funding?
Well, it's just a little early yet. I really have to see where the applications lie. And it's handled by the emergency management folks upstairs, and exactly what kind of numbers we're looking at. All I have is percentages. And that's why I estimate that we will have more requests than funds available.
All right, and also I want to thank you for your support down here in Bridgeport. It's much appreciated, and it is noticed. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moore. Representative Paolillo.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Commissioner, great to see you. Thank you for your testimony today.
Welcome. Nice to see you.
Follow-up question around the body cameras. There had been some discussion of maybe 5 or 10 minutes ago around funding, around storage, some other issues. Can you tell us how many departments in the state right now do not have body cameras or not equipped with body cameras?
I can't even give you an estimate on that, Representative.
Okay, all right. Would you be able to maybe get that information back to us, or maybe get us somewhere where we can follow up with that question and have that information?
I can inquire from the chiefs of police and from OPM. They're actually the grantor on that one.
Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate that. And thank you for your testimony today. And again, thank you for your support of our city and all municipalities. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Thank you, Representative. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Not too many questions. I just want to follow up with the school security grants. So from what I heard or could piece together here, are there 2 or 3 different grant programs? One being for school security grants, the second one for nonprofit security grants. Is there a third that I missed, or are those the only 2?
No, there's actually 3. The first one is your traditional safety and security for schools that has been coming out for the last for numerous years. That's for $5 million. There's another one that accompanies it. It's also separate, which is the interoperability portion for technology for $5 million. And not directly related to just schools, but you do have another $5 million for nonprofits and houses of worship.
Okay. So are there matching grants with any of these? In other words, I guess what I'm looking at is if there's a request by a district, do they put in anything into this, or is it just a straight out grant? They need, let's say they need $100,000 for whatever security needs they may have, that it's basically a grant. They're applying for $100,000. That is the cost of the project.
Your school security is based on that formula for that OPM uses, town wealth formula. Your interoperability, we have not yet decided. We're working through the legal side of that, whether there will be a match or not. And as far as your houses of worship go and your nonprofits, that is up to $50,000, and there's no match for that.
So going back to the formula for town wealth, so that must be a sliding scale. If you fall into an alliance district, you may be covered for 100% versus a more affluent community. They would be paying, so much 50 cents on the dollar, or a 50-50 match. Is that how it works out?
I think that sliding scale is 20% for your less fortunate communities to 80% to your more fortunate.
Okay, great. Just one last question regarding the forensic labs. I see there's a note here that there is an unallocated balance that's being canceled. Can you explain that?
Certainly. when I first came on board over 2 years ago, the lab was slated and it stalled for a brand new laboratory. So right now, what we've done in the last 2 years is we've really taken a look at all of DESP facilities, which includes the state police, the laboratory, posts, the fire academy. Those are our main occupants of hard facilities. And we're in only the draft stage of coming up with a recommendation how to spend taxpayers' money efficiently. And the lab is included in that conditions analysis of our facilities, and that should have something within the next couple months. But we're looking at the lab to spend, if we decide on an addition, it'll be at the Mulcahy Center in Meriden.
How many different labs are there? And are you proposing new ones?
There's only one scientific services laboratory, which does all the forensic analysis for DESP, which means it does it for all of law enforcement and the prosecutor's office. There's only one of those.
There's only one forensic lab, is that what you're saying?
There's only one criminal forensic lab for the state.
And where is that located?
It's located in the Mulcahy Center in Meriden, Connecticut.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Meskers.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I had a question about the federal grants that you said, are they in tandem or matching? That you said it for the school safety security?
That's for the.
You said they weren't quite as, I'm sorry, you said they weren't as robust. So I just wanted to get a little background there.
Okay, so that grant I referred to has nothing to do with the interoperability, has nothing to do with the school security. It has everything to do with nonprofits and houses of worship. It's a federal grant process. Last time I looked at that grant, it was only maybe $300,000. And that's a sliding scale depending on how much the federal government puts into it. But you can't really get both. One has to be balanced from the other.
Right. So I would just say is, as people come in and you advise, if we're using basically it sounds like similar to the ECS funding formularies for the state funding, that the federal funding may not be as the federal. Sorry, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. If the federal funding isn't, even though it's not as robust, if you look at the sliding scale, we might want to factor in advising some of the districts that they might find a better reimbursement rate or ratio. You know, those who are not alliance districts, who are not at 80, are only getting a marginal amount. They might be better off at the federal level. So I'm just suggesting, at least for the nonprofits. So I know that requires you guys to think outside, but I want to maximize the amount of money we can capture from the federal government for those types of assistance programs. And instead of taking a small amount from the state money into a high-end district, the payout ratio might be higher at the Fed level for a district with a low reimbursement rate. So I just, if you would, just bear that in mind when people are coming and asking. So if we direct them the right way.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands for questions or comments, so I just had a couple of follow-up, and I'm probably more confused about the nonprofit grant, and that's, I'm sure, on my end. So I just want to make sure I understand. So there was $5 million in bonding for House of Worship and nonprofit grants, and those are the applications that just went out a couple of weeks ago. Is that correct?
These are the applications that just came into emergency management a couple of weeks ago, yes.
Okay, but there's a separate federal grant program for the House of Worship and nonprofits?
Yes.
Okay. So, and how much was that? 5 million also?
No, that last time I looked at that one, that was only a couple $100,000 strong.
Okay, and that's over. That's done.
That's also concluded.
That's concluded. Okay, so our 5 million state bonding does not does not cover the applications, the 385 applications that you received.
No, the state bonding does cover the 387 apps we received.
I meant there's not enough for all the applications you received.
I don't expect there'll be enough.
Okay. Okay. So that's something our committee needs to take back. On school security, could that funding be used for ballistic gear? What could it be used for our first responders that respond to a school incident?
That can only be used for school infrastructure or hardening of schools. That's not for ballistic materials for first responders.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And then the 39 million for the mobile radio network. So that 39 million is to upgrade the existing infrastructure for those 70 municipalities and to also allow for capability for more municipalities to come on board?
That's actually part of that is for expansion, coverage, enhancement around the state, which means towers and different microwave sites. It also, we put in 1.8 for planned replacement of end-of-life equipment. And there's also a piece in there for the Department of Correction and their modernization of their radio system. So we will do that also. And we put in 1.8 for planned subscriber replacement, which means the enhancement of a lot of subscribers.
Okay, great. So if 40 municipalities came on tomorrow, would there be capacity to manage them?
Yes, as long as we kept it under the 80,000, each individual's one, we have capacity for over 80,000 individuals. So yes.
Okay. And then forgive my my lack of knowledge in this area, but we have, and I know this is more dispatch, but we have some areas of the state that are more on a regional basis. Does this come into play here at all?
Yes, if these backbones are expensive to put up, and that's what we give away to the municipalities. If the region decides to jump on our backbone, they could certainly adapt to it. The only thing we don't cover is specific equipment, and we don't cover if a town needs enhanced service, maybe indoors or down in the valley, we don't cover that. That would go to the town. So in essence, yes.
So I've seen some requests come in from some legislators around upgrading their equipment for their regional communication program. But technically they would fall under this. I'm just trying to wonder if the asks are the same asks. You know, if we need to fund legislators' request for an upgrade for communication equipment when we also have this request in for an upgrade in the mobile network. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and you know, coming out of Hartford, you know, I had their dispatch system for 15 months when I supervised it. I think you may be hearing from some municipalities a request for their dispatch equipment, which is far different than what flies through the air, because we handle that backbone with our towers, our radio system, and that's what we handle.
Okay, that's exactly what I was getting at. So thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to make sure I understood the difference. So, okay, anybody else have any other questions? Well, we want to thank you so much for being here today and for all the work that you do. And thank your entire team for being here and working with us. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you very much. And everybody have a very good day. Take care now.
I believe your next people are in here, Representative.
Okay, and it's Department of Correction, right?
Yeah.
Segue.
I forget the person's name. It's Sharonda Carlos is one of them, and I know she's in here.
Yep, I see Sharonda.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Sharonda, the floor is yours. You can, if you have folks with you, if you want to introduce them as well, that'd be great.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Senator Moore, Representative Boer, and members of the Bonding Subcommittee. My name is Sharonda Carlos. I am the Deputy Commissioner of Administration for the Department of Correction. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, Commissioner Quiroz is unable to attend on today. With me is our Director of Facilities Management and Engineering, Steve Link. We are pleased to come before you today to answer your questions regarding our current unallocated balances and the new bond authorization proposed by Governor Lamont for DOC. Thank you for this time.
Well, that was quick and easy and succinct. I actually don't see any hands. Nobody has a question? Representative Clarice Detria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one or two possible questions for you today. Thank you for being here. Are the existing unallocated funds sufficient to cover all the projects the department has planned?
I will answer, and then I will turn it over to Director Link for any additional feedback. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are appreciative for what Governor Lamont has allocated for the Department of Correction. With our allocated amount and the authorized amount, we're looking at $44 million over the next 2 years for our construction projects. 207 million in identified capital funds would be needed. However, we do understand that with our operations of our facilities, that we are not able to, I'll say, digest any more than the 44 million at this time. But I'll have Director Steve Link add if there's anything further.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Yes, you are correct. We really, due to our operational needs, we really can't, as you said, digest or take that kind of constructions all at once. So the 44 million is definitely within our ability to utilize effectively and not disrupt our facilities.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And how do the funds and projects relate to the energy efficient projects that DEEP, undertaking with DEEP?
Those are actually separate from these bonds. And so there is a separate set aside funding that we utilize for that.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Appreciate it. Representative Detria asked a lot of my questions, but I was wondering if, over the years we've heard of a certain amount of facilities closing. Is there a capital request? Is there a mothball, if you will, request, or is there a system where you go about actually closing up a building, or are you looking for new uses for it, or for these buildings that we hear, as you close your prisons?
Well, as far as closing, we do have a procedure and a policy. These are major investments for the state, so we maintain the closed facilities in an appropriate manner so that they don't degrade and they maintain their value. As far as other uses, I would defer to the commissioner for that.
Hello. So in regards, hi, Representative. So for an example, Webster CI, we've closed that facility. It no longer houses offenders, but we utilize that for our central transportation unit. So some of our buildings, as spoken by the director, we do maintain an upkeep, and there are a couple that we're able to utilize for other operations.
And are any of your present requests for continuing? I see some requests for new construction. I'm having trouble getting that straight in my mind where you're new construction of housing while you're closing facilities. Am I just reading the program wording wrong?
So are you okay? Go ahead, Director Lane.
That's how they describe our general bonding authorization. So it's actually, we're not doing any type of creating any new housing. It's just how our authorization is worded.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Piscopo. Senator Moore.
Good afternoon, Shonda. How are you? You're muted.
I said thank you. I said I was well. I'm well. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good. Happy Monday.
Happy
So
Monday.
how many buildings do you have? You maintain?
So currently we maintain 283 buildings and we maintain more than 3,000 acres of land.
And so of those 283 buildings, how many are being used?
Director Link, do you know specifically? That might be an answer we may have to get to you, Senator Moore.
Yeah, we'd have to get back to you. I don't know the exact number.
Okay, and I'm going to follow up on Representative Piscopo's question about as you close those buildings, how many of them are actually empty and not in use? Do you know?
Well, once we get the number of the closed ones, but as the commissioner was saying, Webster is still being used. Portions of Enfield are still being used. Northern is in the process of being closed. So there is some usage, even if the building is closed, it just doesn't house inmates.
And so the amount that the 44 million, you feel as though that is sufficient to complete your projects?
Yes, none of that money is going toward any of the closed facilities. It's going toward the operating ones. We maintain and the closed facilities in our general operating because it's a minimal cost, but it's an incredible investment for the state that we maintain.
So are you saying that 44 million is all operating?
No, it's going toward, it'll be improvements in the operating facilities.
Oh,
none of it is going toward the closed facilities, to do any construction or infrastructure improvements.
So it's all investment into existing buildings?
Yes, that are operating and open, yes.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moore. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, out of the 283 buildings that you maintain, can you give us just a brief description of what those are?
Well, they range from everything from inmate housing units to the power plants to the storage areas. It contains staff housing. It runs the gambit of everything that the Department of Correction has under its umbrella.
Would you be able to provide a breakdown of how many in each of those categories?
Yes, we can probably get that off of Jester, but it's, yes.
Yeah, and what's the overall budget for the Correctional Department?
I would have to defer to our fiscal director on that.
And I believe he's on Director Mickey Regan.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Regan. I'm the Chief Fiscal Officer for the Department of Correction. We are in excess of $600 million in operating through the general fund.
And is that pretty constant, meaning that you're at 600 million and you anticipate that growing in the near future? Or is that pretty constant?
It's going to both grow and recede as the per unit costs go up every year. It costs more to buy things, but our population has been coming down steadily and we are closing facilities. So our overall budget will go down, but it will proportionally increase with costs.
Yeah, that would make sense. So the per unit cost would still be higher, even though you may be reducing in buildings. And,
yes, in aggregate, our overall budget will be smaller.
Right. Okay. Great. All right. And maybe one last question. And how many inmates do you currently have?
I think the current census is around 9,400.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Senator. I don't see any other hands. I just had a couple of follow-up questions because the question around the 40 million that the governor is providing in 22 and 23, it looks like in 23, the governor's recommended is 10 million, but your request was 76 million. That's an awful big swing. So what's not being funded that you were asking to be funded in that $66 million delta?
Director Link, do you have a breakdown?
Just high level, you don't have to give the details, but that $66 million is a lot.
I'm not privy to what was actually requested. We do request on our 5-year plan, what's we're listing as high priority or priority issues. But even if we were to receive that amount, 70 million, I don't think that we could have digested or actually used it in that particular biennium. So I think that the 10 million that we were allocated, we will be able to address and go after our most critical needs. So I think that we will be in good shape.
Okay, thank you for that. And then on healthcare, so is Uconn Health still providing the healthcare for the inmates? No, you're shaking your no.
No, the Department of Correction. They back in July of 2018, the Department of Correction took over health services for the offender population.
Okay, I remember discussing that. I didn't remember where it landed. So, as part of your bonding request, are any of the upgrades to healthcare facilities or equipment or resources that you need for healthcare?
This would not include equipment costs. This would only include capital improvements to the physical plant. Equipment is handled through the capital equipment fund, which is a different program through the Office of Policy and Management.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. And then does the Department of Corrections fund any of the reentry facilities, whether through bonding or other avenue?
Are you referring to halfway houses?
Yeah, yes. I don't like the term halfway house, but I know that's what they're called, so I say reentry.
Well, the reason I asked that is because some of our facilities are reentry facilities. Some of our correctional facilities are reentry facilities, so there's a differentiation.
Got it.
With regard to the halfway house, we contract with service providers for those, and they handle their own upgrades. And the process would be that they would charge us an amount sufficient to cover future physical plant improvements that they have to make through those contracted agreements, and that is funded out of our operating budget. It is not. It is not. None of the money that we spend for halfway houses is bonded money.
So the reentry facilities, could they be, or are they some of the facilities that are closing or who have closed? Are you repurposing those buildings?
The facilities that are slated to be closed are prisons. All right. So that do not have they're not reentry facilities, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is they weren't reentry, but we own the land, we own the building. I don't know, you turn it into something else. I'm not suggesting that it be a prison atmosphere. I'm just wondering sometimes if you own the land in a facility, if you could gut it and make it something, just repurpose it in a way that's beneficial for them to reenter.
Understood, and that may be something that we can have further dialogue about in regards to the repurposing of one of the facilities. That's not something that we've discussed internally yet, but thank you for that recommendation.
Well, I guess that leads to the next question. We only have a couple more minutes. What do we do with the facilities that close? What do we do with them?
Some of them are repurposed for internal uses, such as the Webster building has become our transportation hub, where we run our centralized transportation unit. But other ones are mothballed, and they will sit largely unutilized until needed. And one of the reasons for that, well, there's two primary reasons for that. Number one is, as I'm sure you would understand, citing any future prison would be very difficult. So maintaining those facilities, primarily the land, is important for any future need. There isn't any location within the state that you could probably cite a future prison or jail if you had to. But for a more practical reason, if you go up north or you go to Cheshire, you'll find that our facilities are campused, meaning they're contiguous. So there's a prison abutting a prison abutting a prison. And if you have one in the middle of two that you close, how are you going to repurpose that? Because you'd have somebody locating between two facilities in high security areas, and that would be problematic as well.
Yeah. I understand. It sounds like there's a few facilities closed though, so I look forward to.
And I will note that when facilities close that are sort of standalone, such as the Bergen property, which is up across the street from Uconn, the Uconn Depot campus, and the former Litchfield County Jail, they were standalone facilities. They were not located near and next to or contiguous to another correctional facility. And those properties were transferred to for other uses. The Bergen property is now owned and operated by Uconn.
Great, thank you. And then just quickly on the funding for the York Street overhaul and the energy efficient, can you just talk about those plans and what the timing is for those plans?
Well, the overhaul of the York Central Plant and Distribution System is 85 or 87% complete. So over the course of last year, we replaced the heating system and the associated piping and controls, and we ran this winter on the heating system. We're approaching spring and summer, and we worked all winter in order to prepare the new chillers and cooling system. And so when cooling season starts this year, we will be on the new cooling and distribution system, and we'll be wrapping up the project in the next 6 to 8 months.
Awesome, great, thank you. And how about the energy efficient project?
That was a part and parcel of this project. Along with it, we used high efficiency chillers and boilers and new controls with energy pressure independent valving, state of the art. So we should achieve significant savings along with improving comfort for the inmates.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I don't see any other questions or comments. So I want to thank you all for being here and for all the work that you do, and look forward to that follow-up information. If you send it to myself and Senator Moore, we'll be sure to get it out to all of the committee members.
Will do. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, so we are ahead of schedule here by a decent amount. Do you want me to email the next people and ask if they can come early?
You know what? Why not, if everybody wants to take a 6-minute break, right? They're scheduled for 2:30.
No, they're actually scheduled for 3.
Oh, we're that far scheduled?
Yeah, you were supposed. That one was 2:15 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so everyone's been a little bit quicker. So.
Oh, so the next one's not till 3:45.
No, till 3. It starts at 3 and goes till 3:45.
Okay, I have on the schedule military department 3 to 3:45. You're right, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's Senator Moore? What do you think, Senator?
Let's see if we can push everybody up.
Okay. I'll work on it and I can let you guys know. I'll send them an email and call them right now.
Okay, so let's just take a 5-minute break and then we'll regroup and you can tell us if they can come early.
Sure, I'll ask them to come at 2:30. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
See you all in 5.
Hi, Senator, Senator Moore. I see you there. I talked to the military. They should be logging in any minute. Whoop, you're on mute.
I'm here.
Okay.
They're gonna log in?
Nope, yeah, they're gonna log in as soon as they're ready. So they're not here at this second, but I'll let you know when they do.
So the next group, did you find out if they could come in earlier?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get everyone to come in early.
Okay, that's
Yep.
good. Thank
So
you.
we'll keep working them, but the military department was watching us, so they were getting ready. So hopefully they're here in any minute. I will let you guys know, but no one's here right now.
All right, thanks.
All right. I'm not sure if that's someone. Matt, are you? Hello, Matt? That could be someone from them. Hold on.
feedback. So easier for
Hi.
me to see.
I don't, hello? Nope. Rep 4, we do have some people here now.
Okay, great. Just want to check in, Senator Moore, are you, I don't want to start without you. We're just going to give it 2 more minutes because we were taking 5 and I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to come back. You could all hear my voice. Start gathering back. And then Tom, you reached out to the Office of Early Childhood.
I did. I reached out to everyone. Judicial is kind of like stuck to 3:45, so I asked Early Childhood if they could come early, so they should be here early.
They'll come before judicial, you
It's
mean?
up to you guys, but they might be prepared to. Yeah, I've shot them all an email.
Okay, because I think military, I don't think,
Yeah, do you mind going out of order, or what do you want to do?
I don't mind going out of order.
Okay.
As long
All
as
right.
nobody else does.
We'll try to get Early Childhood next then.
Okay, and I think, I'm sure Senator Moore, it's okay if we get started. So I want to welcome you, Major General. Good to see you again.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Hope all is well. And we got the senior team here. I know we've submitted written testimony, so we're ready to get started as soon as you are.
Sure, and I just want to lead off before you review your agency requests and governor allocations, just by really thanking you for everything that you did during COVID. Your work was so instrumental in keeping us all safe across Connecticut. So I know I speak on behalf of all the committee members when we say thank you for everything you did.
No, thank you very much. I have a great team. And we were actually out in Bridgeport this morning with the mobile vaccine unit that FEMA's provided, and under the state's direction that we opened up today, and we're assisting with that effort as well. So thank you very much, and thank you for the continued support.
Thank you. Okay, the floor is yours.
So good afternoon, chairpersons and members of the General Obligation Committee. I'm General Yvonne, the Adjutant General, and today I'm with some senior members of the staff. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. We've provided the subcommittee a detailed written testimony, and I'm just going to hit on the highlights, and some of it will actually be on our efforts for COVID, actually. The COVID, so obviously these are unprecedented times. To date, we've had over 1,000 members of the Connecticut Guard and the organized militia that have organized and conducted COVID relief and support missions to date. We started out with modeling and managing medical equipment, PPE logistics, warehousing, nursing home safety inspections, to today what we know the main effort for us is basically support to testing and shifting now to support to the vaccine sites. So we're at I think today we're over just nearly 21 different vaccine sites with guardsmen. We've got about the high watermark last week was about 41 vaccinators that have helped the lead agency, public health, again in combating COVID-19, and our soldiers and airmen and our militia. I can't say enough about their performance. It's simply been outstanding. At the same time, and if you remember back to January 21st, and even this last summer, we had Tropical Storm Isaias, which we provided support to. And on the 21st of January, never thought I'd be sitting here in 2021 saying that we had armed guardsmen at both our nation and our state capital in ensuring the security of the inaugural and the safe passage of power from one administration to the other. So really, I sleep well at night knowing that I have young men and women who raised their right hand and volunteered to be part of something larger than themselves. And this only happens with the support of both my boss and the administration and you as legislators. So truly appreciate that. I'll jump right into the physical nature of this. For our most recent project completions, we're programmed to break ground in the future we'll execute about 45 million more in federal construction over the next 2 years. Our ability to execute this level of federal funding hinges almost entirely on bonding and the ability of the state to meet its statutory required matching funds. The agency expects to receive approximately $5 million in state bonding over the next 2 fiscal years, which will amply meet the statutory requirements that we have based on our master plan. During the next 2 fiscal years, we'll also substantially complete the execution of approximately 12 existing bonds with a total unallocated balance of approximately $3 million. Most of these projects are either going or awaiting federal funds, which are dispersed on a cycle differing from the state. In addition to our large ongoing projects, such as the construction of the new Readiness Center in Putnam and renovations here at the Armory drill shed floor, the agency's continuous focus on renewable and sustainable energy projects throughout the state in line with the governor's program. We recently conducted a solar study for our Norwich Armory and an energy audit for our facilities in Groton and Windsor Locks. We continually have made LED lighting upgrades throughout our facilities across the state, and we are in the middle of developing a statewide energy and water plan focused on the sustainability and security of our water and utilities. Your support for these improvements ensures that our guardsmen and women are trained, ready, and have the resources necessary to accomplish any mission when they're called upon. Your support ensures that we maintain and meet one of our primary goals, which is ensuring that they have the best and most state-of-the-art facilities for guardsmen across the country. So I thank you for your time and attention, and we're ready to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you again for your continued support.
Thank you. I actually don't see any hands for questions or comment. I will hold my question because I see Representative Yakarino.
You go first, Madam Chair.
Well, I was just going to do a follow-up if there was no questions or comments. So go
You
right
sure?
ahead.
I just want to thank the general and the men and women for everything they've done for our state and our country. I did tour, had the privilege and honor to tour of the bases when I was ranking member on veterans, maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, different bases throughout the state. And I know you mentioned a couple of them. Structurally, how are they? And how's the morale with the men and women? Since the summer, all the PPP, they've helped so much in our state, just dispersing and distributing PPP, helping with the vaccine. I just got my second vaccine Saturday in West Haven, the West Campus, and Air National Guard and Army National Guard were there, and I knew some of the men and women. And I just think it's amazing. I don't think people realize what you do and how much you do every day, day in and day out. But so how structurally are the bases we have in Connecticut, and how is the morale? I know it's not a money question so much, but
So to answer your question, and I appreciate the question, so thank you, sir. And it doesn't seem like it was that many years ago that you actually were on that tour, the Civic Leader Orientation Flight.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're hoping to do is, as we get post-COVID, that we start conducting them again, because it's very important to show, and quite honestly, you as legislators, our congressional delegation, the good, bad, and ugly of our business, and it helps you to get a better understanding on what the men and women of the Connecticut Guard do day in and day out. So we've got 35 facilities. We're looking to we have the design and funding for our newest center, our Readiness Center, which will be in Putnam, and we're looking to align with the 5 districts of the Office of Emergency Management. So our goal is to have a major facility in each of the districts. As we go forward, we're looking to do something in the Newtown area, so Litchfield County, in that area. But overall, our facilities are not in bad shape. When we most recently, last couple of weeks with the ARF fundings coming in, we went and looked to see if there was any upgrades that we can do with touchless the latrines or doors or things like that to upgrade the facilities. And surprisingly, they're not in that bad a shape. I don't have in front of me, but I know it's in the blue book that we have sent out. But I think the average age of our facilities is now down to 34 years, and that's well better than what it used to be. As far as morale, the men and women of our Army and Air Guard, they are very excited. This is what they signed up for. Many were unemployed, so we're able to help in that regard. Many were students that were, forced to learn online, so they have time. They probably were going to school on the tuition waiver, thanks to the legislature back in the late 80s and early 90s. But they probably lost their full-time employment or their part-time employment they had because they were, jobs that they were just doing in between class type of thing.
Right.
So they're very excited that we're able to employ them. They're helping the citizens of Connecticut, and every day we call it fan mail. So we're getting phone calls and cards and notes and I heard even today, like I said earlier, in Bridgeport, I guess Senator Blumenthal got tested this weekend in Greenwich, and it was a guardsman who was helping them navigate that particular testing center. So real proud of the team and everything they've done. We do need to get back, so I'm looking to get COVID in the rearview mirror.
Right.
2 years without a robust annual training and trying to really look after our federal mission. What some of us have lost sight of. The reality is that as we maintain a very large footprint, our high watermark on COVID support was 1,100 this past summer. We currently have 800 deployed, and another couple of hundred members of our Air Guard that will add to that. So we really did miss a beat on ensuring we hit all the training gates for our federal mission in addition to our COVID response. So I thank you for the question. Hopefully that answered it.
I appreciate it. You made a good point. I don't think people realize how many of our men and women that serve in the reserves or National Guard, they're actually serving an active duty overseas. So that's all I have to say. I just want to thank you so much, and God bless you and the men and women, and I appreciate everything you do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Iaccarino. Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, General. Thank you for your testimony. Great testimony as always. I read through it yesterday, and it was very well done as you usually do. So thank you for going in depth. My question, you answered my question in talking with Representative Iaccarino on the Litchfield County Readiness Center. Do you have a parcel in mind, or have you made an offer? I see it's unallocated. Where are you on that?
Sure. So the unallocated basically means right now that we haven't gotten onto the FIDEP, the Fiscal Year Future Defense Plan. So we haven't gotten the federal money is the bottom line. We are looking at property. Quite honestly, our fallback, because we get higher points from the federal scorecard and kind of move to the top of the line or higher up the ranks when we have property that we already own. So we have plenty of property in Newtown where the second company's Governor's Foot Guard is, and we have our military working dogs. So we have some preliminary designs that we've incorporated into that facility, and that's probably at the end of the day where it's going to go. We always are looking at excess property throughout the state to see if there's any options there as well. But if you ask me today, we're probably going to land at Newtown. And again, owning that property gets us a little bit ahead of the line, and it'll get us hopefully get the future federal funding sooner than later.
Do you house our air? Are you in charge of our Air Guard, or do you house any
Yes, sir.
planes up in Bradley, or are you still? We still have the fighters in Bradley.
We have. That's a great question. We have our airlift wing, so the C-130 cargo aircraft. It's a squadron, a wing of 8 aircraft. We self-deployed our soldiers and airmen to DC in January that I spoke of. So we definitely are they're without a doubt operational. We've done many upgrades. If you next time you're up at the airport, if you go on the other side of the airfield, we have a brand new front gate thanks to the matching funds and bonding that we've executed from the state and also the federal government. It gets the front gate into compliance with all of our force protection issues. And so yes, we have the 1,100, 1,200 air guardsmen. And like I said, we'll have about 400 or 500 that will deploy pretty soon here. And we also have another facility. Our air control squadron is down in Orange, Connecticut, and they manage when they deploy, they manage airspace for all of the military and civilian when they go to a given country or area of operation. So great question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chairwoman Boer. Hi, Major General. Thank you very much for your time and for being here with your team. I actually had a few questions following up, particularly on what you mentioned about the energy audit you all are engaged in. Do you have an anticipated time frame of when that audit would be completed?
Yeah, we anticipate that it'll be done in September. I've got my facilities construction engineer POC right here, and we anticipate that'll be done in September.
Okay. And is there current bonding dollars that is meant to go towards greater energy efficiency, or you're anticipating future bonding projects will have that focus?
So we anticipate future bonding requests. There is some funding, like when I talked about the LED lights that we're using on upgrades, but from the benefit or after the results of the audit, that'll probably be a future request for sure. And also trying to leverage, obviously, the federal money and their sustainable energy initiatives as well.
Great. That's what I was wondering, if there were some other federal funds that you could leverage once you come up with that plan. Thank you so much. I'm sure we look forward to seeing that plan once it's completed.
Absolutely. One of the things we're interested in, the team here has been down to the sub base and how they leveraged their solar farm to energize at least not the nuclear part of the base, but the rest of it. And so we've been down there to visit. They've also done the solar farm for their Navy housing as well. So we've got a good collaboration with Bob Ross down there, and we are looking at any and all energy projects that we can pretty much bring many of our older facilities up to date on.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so in a couple months, we'll loop back together, hopefully, and see the outputs of that plan to move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Major General. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Representative. Great questions. Representative Mushinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Major General. I wanted to ask you about, do you expect to get any federal funding for the energy efficiency or clean energy projects that you propose? With the federal bill that's being considered, the infrastructure bill, I understand there's going to be some clean energy money in there.
Yes, so we I'm on mute. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Okay, too slow on the draw on that one. So we've worked with Dan DeSimone down in the governor's DC office, and we've submitted some shovel-ready projects. It's my word. I know we're not really using that anymore. But as far as energy projects go, I think besides some of the upgrades to power generation or furnaces, we're looking forward to any other initiatives we can probably piggyback off of DOD. Nothing specific in the current ARF that we see for us as it relates to sustainable energy.
Okay. And asking you a question was really a way to allow me to thank you and your folks for your work on the vaccinations. Everyone in my community is so appreciative of the work your troops have done. And if you would please spread the word that we're also grateful for their help.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Representative. Senator Moore.
Good afternoon, Major General. I feel like I should stand and salute you. I want to say from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate the work that you all are doing, especially when I wanted you, like as soon as we heard there was this pandemic, when I spoke to all the commissioners, I said, we need to call in our troops. That's who we can trust and depend on to get this done. So you were here in Bridgeport today. People was here, and I'm so happy because people trust you. And so when they see that this is a serious pandemic that we're in, and I thought it was very encouraging to see how we received your support. So I want to, first of all, thank you for that from the bottom of my heart, for so many people who were mistrusting a lot of things, but your presence made a huge difference, and that your involvement. And I wanted to ask you about, I've been where the footmen are located, and is that near Southbury Training School, across from Southbury Training School, that facility?
No, the foot guard is across from, it is an old state facility, formerly, trying to think of the name of it, but the mental health and addiction. So not in Southbury, but in Newtown, yes.
In Newtown, okay. It is across from some buildings. All right. Would you, are those buildings being used? Do you know that could be a state open facility that you could use?
So it's funny, yes, that we went down there probably 3 months ago now, and the town, and I can't think of the name of the facility, but it's like a Southbury training school, like to your reference. But the town has actually taken off over most of that property to include some private businesses. So I recall there was an antique auto retrofit company, microbrewery. So the majority of that property has been taken over, like with the town. I think they put their Parks and Rec Center there, and they may even have some of their town facilities there. So we don't think it's available, but the property that we do have between the foot guard property and when we put our military working dog facility, we've already parceled out where we think the new armory can be, but it's actually in Newtown. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right, well, thank you. I remember seeing the buildings, but I was thinking that's what was in the buildings on the right-hand side as you go down the hill. But I was thinking of that because if you're going to get a bang for your buck and the federal's going to give you a higher score if you're using state properties, that would be some of the land that you would consider that it was state-owned. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and please spread the word that we really do appreciate the work that you all are doing. Thank you.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Here.
Thank you, Senator Moore. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Major General Yvonne. How are you? Thank you for coming today. I have a question regarding, did you say that you're planning on a readiness center in Putnam as well as in the, I guess, from Litchfield and sort of looking more towards Newtown now? Is that
yeah,
correct?
we actually, so we have, we've secured state property, excess state property in Putnam. We've already done the design build. Currently on my desk is some renditions of what it's going to look like. We anticipate we'll break ground in
22, sir.
In next year, and so in 22 we'll break ground. It's right up the street from the hospital, Day Kimball. It's right up the street from Day Kimball. So that'll get us into the northeast corner of the state. And ironically, we used to have an armory up there that had previously been closed under the base realignment. And we get great support from the town and from the community. So we're looking to get back there as soon as we get the armory built.
These, how many readiness centers would we have in the state currently? And if you have two other planned, are they all the same size?
So we've got 35 different sites. There's 14 readiness centers. 2 of them are actually joint readiness centers with the Armed Forces Reserves. They're based on the projected unit that we put in there is how we base the square footage and the size out of. I would say this one is fairly, and I can give you the details. I know it's in the blue book, but it's probably an average size. And I'm looking it up right now. It's going to be $17.5 million. We've got 35% or almost 40% design now. And the square footage, I do not have in front of me, but I'm sure I can get that to you.
And is the same thing being planned for Southbury as well, or the Newtown area?
Yes, sir. Putnam's about 40,000 square foot. We're looking to house one of our military police units up there, and probably be a give or take about the same footprint in Newtown as well.
Okay. And regarding the federal funding, how many projects do you have currently that are funded partially, I guess, by the federal government?
So we've got 35 active construction projects, and I'd say just about every one is federally funded with some sort of a state matching. The state match runs anywhere from 10 to 25%, depending on the size of the project and the scope of the project.
So most of the funds actually come from the federal government on any of these.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I think our state budget is like just over 5.2 million, and we use that to execute over just under 300 million that we get from the federal government. So that's military construction and also pay and allowances and things like that.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Major General. Good to see you again.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. And I think that concludes our questions and comments. And again, I know a lot of folks have thank you. I just want to reiterate that one more time. And as Senator Moore said, please extend our appreciation to your entire team, because I know so many worked very hard. You work hard all the time, but 2020 was certainly a challenging year. And also, as the Senator said, it really, hit home when you see the facilities being the makeshift centers at, for example, at Southern Connecticut University, or to prepare for the overflow of the hospitals. For all of you to be there just was really incredible work. So thank you very much for everything, and I think that concludes our time with you.
Great. I appreciate the time, and thank you for the opportunity. And we'll definitely pass the word of thanks along to all of our soldiers and airmen. Really proud of them. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We are too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Tom, did early childhood development, were they able to come in before judicial?
So Tom actually had to go to another meeting, so I'm just
okay
for him. Office of Early Childhood, I tried giving them a call. I haven't heard anything. In judicial branch, they cannot come any earlier than 3:45. So I will keep calling Office of Early Childhood and see if they can come in early, and then get back to you and let you know.
Okay, so then, well, I don't know that we want to hang in limbo for 45 minutes, right? So maybe.
So when I talked to Tom, he said as we wait, we could just recess the committee for until we hear back.
Yeah, I just want to let them know how to let them know we're recessing. I guess. Well, we'll just all have it running at the same time we're doing everything else, and when we hear you, Christina, come back on and let us know if early childhood came in any earlier, then we'll just reconvene.
Okay, sounds good. I will call them now.
So 45 minutes. It's Terry.
Well, 45 minutes unless early childhood comes
in early.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, Dorinda?
Yeah.
So then, judicial, when would they come?
They're sticking with the 3:45.
Oh, okay, you're just trying to move OEC up earlier.
Yeah, if they respond like in the next 10 minutes, because we want to give them their time, their opportunity. So if they respond in the next, 10 minutes, we'll bring them on earlier. If not, then we're going to have to wait until after judicial.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to take 45 minutes unless I hear. I'll leave my voice on so I'll hear.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks to everybody for being flexible. We'll regroup.
Thank you.
Representative Gore, Senator Moore, are you there?
Christine?
Hi, yes, we just got in contact with Office for Early Childhood, and I just admitted somebody into our meeting, Christopher Letty.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to see you're running ahead of schedule, but I apologize for jumping in a little abruptly. I am the Chief Operating Officer from the Office of Early Childhood. I'm standing in for Beth Bai today and would be happy to answer any questions with regards to the bonding that you are looking at this afternoon.
So, thank you.
No problem.
I'm just gonna, sorry, just caught off guard because I thought we had more time than we did. And I'm so glad that you came on early and you were flexible, but need to pull your original request back up. So.
Absolutely, I will wait. Do you want me to give you a few minutes?
No, well, hang on, let's, we are, and then I thought I would, okay. So, so the Smart Start Competitive Grant Program, the agency, so you still have, you have $30 million in unallocated funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the governor's canceling 15 million, hang on.
Yeah.
So what was the agency request?
So in Public Act 18 I believe it was 81, the initial bond that was authorized for $105 million was reduced to about $63 million in change. And basically what this is doing is the bill before you, or the request before you, reduces from $63 million by another $15 million to $48 million in change, which basically looks to reduce what we were previously authorized, but haven't used within the years it was authorized. So the agency is fine with this approach. We really, thinking about the pandemic and the need to establish additional Smart Start classrooms, we think that we can accomplish that within our appropriations. These funds are, the only thing that we can use these funds for are the capital grant account for improving Smart Start classrooms. So we may change that request in the future, but we feel as though adding about 10 classrooms to help address those learning losses and getting kids into classrooms over the next year can be accomplished with what we have. So we feel as though this proposal is fine. It's not going to impact direct services or slots per se for Smart Start. And we are really focused on ensuring that we are bringing, or achieving our full cost of care in all other aspects of our portfolio of childcare. So we feel as though Smart Start's in a fine place. We're going to be adding some additional classrooms. We're working with communities across the state to do so. We continue to get some inquiries from communities about adding classrooms. We do think that 10 classrooms will be adequate, and this reduction won't harm that work.
Okay, great. And then can you just give a little background on why Smart Start started in the first place, just for those who are new?
Sure. So Smart Start is a great program that ensures that communities throughout the state have an opportunity to add preschool classrooms in their public school settings. And so this is a fund that is maxed out at $75,000 per classroom for, again, communities throughout the state. And it's ensuring that children where there may be deserts or additional needs for preschool classrooms have access to that funding and those supports.
Got it. Great, thank you. And I see Senator Moore has some questions or comments.
Yes. Good afternoon, Senator.
Hi, Chris. I'll tell the former senator I was hoping to see her today.
I most certainly will. You get the former state rep.
Yeah. Oh, are you? So Smart Start is really an important program here in Bridgeport. We really do appreciate the work and the availability to have those programs, but they're not just in schools like ABCD. Does ABCD have Smart Start?
So Smart Start, no, it is for public schools. It's preschool
only?
spots for public schools. You may be thinking of school readiness.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I know there's a mishmash of different funding streams, which is also something OEC is focusing on in terms of trying to funnel those dollars in the most effective way possible. So Bridgeport is a recipient of Smart Start dollars, as there are, I can't remember how many communities off the top of my head, but it is an appropriation of about $3.5 million that's going across several communities, Bridgeport being one of them.
So does the money go directly to the Board of Education or does it go to the city?
It goes directly through the Board of Ed.
And then, so it's how can the money be used?
So great question. So the money is really to support more preschool spaces. So it's actually purchasing spaces in the community. Communities can apply for that funding to make any needed capital improvements to add to preschool spaces. Funding to operate a Smart Start preschool program and increase the number of spots available in public schools has been awarded, I think it was since 2015 or so. So we have the capital improvement and also the slots that this would be funded.
So I'm just curious because when I think about slots, are they hard to fill that you would have?
Well, it is based on need. So communities do need to acknowledge what their need is. They have to document that need in their request. Certainly there are, from community to community, there are unique challenges and needs to getting, kids in the classroom. And part of that is because we have so many different options, right? There's really no wrong door to getting into childcare or preschool. And so we want to make sure that they have as many options as possible. The per student cost for this program is $5,000.
No, something. No, it's not.
Is $5,000 with a cap of at $75,000.
And then my final question is, what are you all doing as an agency to get into more communities and make sure communities who have the need are aware of that there is the ability to open up more?
Yeah, great question. So we are currently, our ECE division is currently fielding calls from districts, and we have program managers who are in communications with our school readiness councils, who are on the ground, who are hearing from school districts about what their need is. As those requests come in, or as we're getting that feedback, we're starting to catalog that and say, okay, here's what the need is with regards to this next cycle. And we have a list of about 10 additional classrooms that we're thinking about being able to stand up over the next year or so. Certainly something that we're paying attention to, Senator, is kids who, because of the pandemic, aren't getting into the classroom. That is a big, and finding those children, right? I mean, making sure that we are actively identifying who those children are, working with the school districts to do so is going to be critical. And so we are getting that feedback, and right now it's about 10 classrooms that will need to be stood up.
Well, thank you, Chris.
You're so welcome.
Coming forth. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Chairwoman.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chairwoman Borer. Hi, Chris. Thanks for being here.
No problem at all. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Following up on a couple of the senator's questions, you had noted you're anticipating 10 applications, and that's for 2022. Is that?
Yes.
Wait, okay. And is that a typical number of applications, more or less?
So this would be in addition to the programs that we currently have, the Smart Start classrooms that we currently have.
Yeah.
And I can get you that list. I can email that to, who should I email that list to? I apologize. Is there a clerk?
Oh, you could.
Oh, I can send it to you?
Yeah, sure. You could
Great.
send it to myself and Senator Moore, and we could disseminate it.
Fantastic.
To everybody.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I certainly know West Hartford was one of those initial ones.
Yes.
But just trying to kind of understand, as you noted, and Senator Moore noted, how we can get the word out and make sure that communities who might be missing are aware of these funds. You mentioned in your initial comments, and this is what I had a question about, next steps for this program. Because this was originally posed as a 10-year initiative, you had noted in your original remarks, potential changes to what might be requested in the future for this bonding. And I'm just trying to understand what you might be looking towards in the future, considering this was set for a 10-year mark, and what adjustments you might be looking for.
Great. Thank you for that question. And thank you for pointing that out. So my comments weren't to suggest that we would change the intent of this particular bonding, but certainly if we needed to look at extending or pivoting, we recognize that this is just one tool in our tool belt. And as we go through our systems reform discussions and look to what the next few years will look like for Smart Start and other programs, especially as a result of the pandemic, I can't forecast what those changes might be per se, but the intent is for Smart Start. It is a 10-year initiative, and we're moving in that direction. We're keeping on that path.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
We were wonderfully excited about the historic announcement on Friday, and I appreciate your comments of really trying to make the most of all of the resources we can in the next couple of years, but be forward thinking. And that's what I think was wonderful about kind of the 10-year horizon of Smart Start. And I hope we continue to learn from that to make some decisions. And I know we're open to hearing from you moving forward on what those suggested changes could look like.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, good afternoon, Chris. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you too, Rep.
All right. It's been too long.
It has.
My question goes to this, the Smart Start. It's a statewide program, is it not? Yeah.
Yes.
And I might be confusing it with like a Head Start. Do you also utilize the regional education centers like we have up here?
Yeah. So Smart Start is again another tool in our tool belt. Our portfolio of childcare and early learning is vast, and we are currently in the process of really looking at it from a 10,000-foot view to really understand how are children accessing our services, and in what ways are they able to access it at an affordable and high quality in a high quality place. So we are currently going through that process. Certainly the pandemic has helped to inform that in some ways, has helped to highlight some strengths of the system, as well as some areas of improvement. But the Smart Start program in particular is unique. As you said, it is statewide. It is in the public schools and really helps to support children of low economic status and income. And so, we really want to make sure that we protect this program, that we include additional classrooms as needed, and that we're agile in that way to make sure that communities who are experiencing a higher need are able to access these seats.
Thank you. Please give my regards to Senator Bai.
I most certainly will. It was good seeing you, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Piscopo. And thank you, Chris. Just one last question. When you talk about capital improvements, are those resources or physical facility improvements?
Physical. physical facility improvements.
Okay, and how does that tie in, if at all, to school construction?
So that's a good question. I will have to get back to you on that. It's my understanding that this is separate and aside from that. But if I could get back to you on that specific question, because I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction.
Sure, if they're physical facility improvements and then through school construction, we do physical facility improvements. Just want to see how the two marry together.
Yes.
I don't see any other questions or comments, but my other question for you is, what years did you serve as a representative?
Oh, thank you for the question. I love talking about my service in the House. So I was a state representative for the town of Newtown from 2008 to 2012.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and I miss it so much, but I'm so happy over here at the Office of Early Childhood, and I'm able to do just as important work as I was able to do over there with all my colleagues. So.
And still connected to us, and
absolutely,
this is just one way that you're connected to us. Well, thank you for all the great work you do for the children across Connecticut.
Thank you for the opportunity and the partnership. It really
and thanks
helps.
for being flexible today. We appreciate
Sure thing.
it. Okay,
absolutely.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. And I see we have, I believe we have Judge Carroll already queued up. I saw him somewhere.
You did, and I'm just trying to get my video to work.
Okay.
There it goes.
Okay, there you go. The pictures, the squares change where we're situated. It's like follow the bouncing ball, but I found you again. So
I'm familiar with that.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for being flexible. We're ahead of schedule, so we figured, we'll just bring everybody on board. And just, the floor is yours. Give your background, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Representative Boer, Senator Moore, Representative Piscopo. I don't know if Ranking Member Martin is on the call, but I send him greetings, as I do to all members of the subcommittee. I'm Judge Pat Carroll. I serve as the Chief Court Administrator for the Judicial Branch of the State of Connecticut. And this marks the 8th time, I can hardly believe it, but it makes the 8th time that I appear before you to talk about the Judicial Branch's capital projects. You may know that the branch has care and custody of some 38 buildings statewide of varying age and size. Only 4 of those 38 buildings were constructed in this century, as I've noted in my written submission. And one of our buildings dates all the way back to 1784. So you might well imagine that on a daily basis, we have a series of issues in our facilities that require constant upkeep and maintenance. As a matter of fact, seldom a day goes by where we don't have a problem somewhere with an elevator or an HVAC or a plumbing system somewhere in one of our buildings. The branch's capital budget request for fiscal year 22 is $10,500,000, and the request for fiscal year 23 is $11 million. I'm going to just briefly go over those for you. I mean, very briefly, and I want to let you know as well that I have all of the subject matter experts who are much better equipped to respond to your questions here with me today. And they include Livy Graham, who is our Executive Director of Administrative Services, Laura Giavino, who's our Director of Facilities, Joyce Santoro is our Director of Financial Services. I also have representatives from our legal unit to talk about our ADA concern, and I have representatives here from our IT unit as well to talk about our technology plan. So the 4 items that we're focusing on are ongoing routine infrastructure repairs to courthouses statewide. The availability of those funds allow us to keep the buildings we operate up and running on a daily basis. We have a prioritized list of repairs and renovations that have to be made, and that obviously shifts as our needs shift during the year. But generally speaking, that list is maintained, and we prioritize our repairs in accordance with the needs as we move along. Item number 2 is implementation of our technology strategic plan. If you check the auditor's records for the last 4 or 5 years, the one thing that they constantly tell us we have to do is upgrade our legacy computer systems. Obviously, that's something that we're well aware of. We've been under a great deal of effort in the last several years to upgrade our IT systems. But when it comes to replacing our legacy systems, some of which date back to 1972 and 74, it takes a massive infusion of capital. And that's why we're asking that you favorably act upon our request to allow us to upgrade our technology plan. Incidentally, much of our technology strategic plan focuses on redundancy and security. It's important for you to know that in the last 12 to 18 months, our IT systems have been subjected to one ransomware attack. Thankfully, because of the great planning and the great professionalism within our IT unit, we were able to mitigate the damage and isolate the damage. And thanks also to the fact that we have a secondary data center, we were able to protect all of our data. We were also subjected to the fair winds or summer winds, I can't remember what it's called, worldwide infection that stems from Russia. Again, thanks to the great work of our IT unit, we were able to isolate that malware, and hopefully we've eradicated it from our systems. But IT technology security is a constant source of concern for us, and it's something that we work on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, and I'm hopeful that you act favorably on that request as well. Item number 3 that we're seeking funding for addresses our concerns with respect to compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Several years ago, we had a complaint registered with the Department of Justice. That led to the Department of Justice conducting an inquiry and a site visit on some of our facilities. And needless to say, as you can well imagine, it's not that different from other state facilities that were constructed in the 50s and earlier. A great many of our facilities are not ADA compliant. I can tell you that the Department of Justice has been very aggressive with us with respect to compliance with ADA reforms and construction renovations that need to be made in our facilities. In fact, they recently ordered that we conduct a comprehensive evaluation of compliance issues in every one of our buildings. We're working with the Attorney General's office, entering into stipulated agreements as to how we're going to address that. It's a matter of great concern for the judicial branch, and it should be for the state of Connecticut, because it carries with it a phenomenal price tag. And it's not only for the judicial branch. I think eventually DOJ is going to be interested in all state facilities. So we're working with the governor's office and with the Department of the Attorney General on that as well. And finally, item number 4, we're requesting additional funding for security improvements at all of our facilities statewide. I don't have to tell you how in the last 6 to 8 months, those concerns have become even more important. But in the courts, we have a record of dangerous security incidents. Senator Moore, you know very well, in Bridgeport at the Golden Hill Street Courthouse approximately a year ago, we had a very dangerous shooting right on the steps of the courthouse, which left 3 people seriously injured after having been shot. Those individuals struggled and bloodied, struggled into our courthouse, where our judicial marshals were able to render first aid and other assistance. But it highlighted challenges that we face in our older buildings with respect to entryways that are not terribly secure, the need to install bulletproof glass on some of our ground floor buildings. There's a wide range of security matters that we hope you will look favorably upon and will require a significant amount of funding for us to undertake. So I've submitted more detailed written remarks. I think that kind of summarizes what I've submitted in writing, and my team and I are ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Representative Nicole Claridis-Dietrich.
Hi, Judge Carroll. How are you doing today?
That's my state representative, I want everybody to know.
Nice to see you today.
Good to see you.
What kind of ADA projects are expected to be started or completed in the biennium?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Libby and Lori Giovino to respond to that. But if you go into a bathroom in any one of our courts, you will see, with the exception of our brand new buildings, we're woefully non-compliant with ADA. So that's a starting point. It's one of the points that that the Department of Justice has highlighted. And Libby or Joy or even Martin, can you respond in a little greater detail with respect to our ADA checklist?
Certainly, Judge Carroll. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Representative. We have completed the upgrade of 6 juror accessibility bathrooms. We'll be continuing ADA work. However, we're working in conjunction, as Judge Carroll indicated, with the Department of Justice and the AGs to ensure that we complete work that is consistent with what they have determined to be priorities. What we do have in our possession now and will be working toward achieving would be the increased, or the enhancements rather, in New Haven at 235 Church Street. We did receive a very detailed analysis from the Department of Justice architect that serves as a foundation for the improvements that we can make, and they're wide ranging from lever handles on doorways and various other improvements. Sometimes very simple adjustments can make a world of difference, lowering the paper towel dispenser as an example. So those straightforward adjustments that we can make now at limited expense, we'll be looking to do that sort of thing. But as Judge Carroll indicated, this is now a larger issue that perhaps Martin Libben, our legal counsel, will provide more detail if you care to hear that.
Okay, well, before we do that, how much longer, how many years do you think all these ADA projects will take? Like past the biennium?
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and what's the status of 121 Elm Street, that project?
With regard to ADA or more generally?
Generally.
I'm going to ask Laura Givino to give you an update on that. As you're aware, there are multiple authorizations that we're applying to the various upgrades that need to be made there. So Laura, I'll let you take the lead.
Good afternoon. As far as 121 Elm Street, that is a formal project. I know that Department of Construction Services had to amend the architects and engineers contract, and that's in process, and the construction documents are almost complete.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Judge Carroll.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Moore. But before we go on to Senator Moore, we're having some echoing. So if anybody's watching the YouTube live, you just want to turn it down because it's backtracking to us. Thank you. Senator Moore.
Good afternoon, Judge Carroll. You know, you mentioned the Bridgeport facility as I was thinking about the Bridgeport facility in your conversation. So, you know, a lot of these courthouse buildings are very old, very, very old. I don't know how old that building is on Golden Hill, but I know it's historic. But I don't know that it's the safest place that anybody would want to go in. And I know of many of the incidents that broke out within the building because of the lack of security, even from the outside, right? I know that they've had police cars parked in front of the building just to protect the front of the building. So, in the list of, I know there's a lot of work needs to be done. Do you have a priority list of what you would like to be able to tackle first?
Well, I think that our hands are somewhat tied because we've got the involvement of the Department of Justice breathing down our necks constantly with respect to ADA compliance. So I don't think that there's much that I can do other than say that that receives a top priority, because we don't want a situation where we get a federal monitor overseeing our compliance, as we've had in the Department of Children and Families for some 25 or 30 years. That would be a bad outcome. So we've been working very cooperatively with representatives of the United States Attorney's Office in an attempt to come up with stipulated agreements that will allow us to approach the ADA revisions in an incremental and measured fashion. That's not to say, however, that any of the other items on our list are not equally as important. Our infrastructure repairs to courthouses statewide, we need to have that flexibility. So when an air chiller goes down or an elevator goes down, we can quickly go ahead and make whatever repairs are necessary to address those. The tech alterations, I mean, it's something that the state auditors cite every year in their audit report, as if the judicial branch has the ability on its own to address those needs. We don't, obviously. We need capital funding in order to move forward on those. And Senator Moore, nobody is positioned better than you are to identify the security risk we face in so many of our older courthouses, like the Golden Hill Street Courthouse and others throughout the state. And you've seen actually what happens when we or the risks that can be created when we don't have adequate security in place. And what we're talking about is innovations such as hardening the entryways, giving us the ability to centrally lock down entrances and exits to prevent people from entering the building if there's a security concern. We need to get video monitoring devices up in those buildings to assist us in detecting potential security risks. It's hard to prioritize, but with the involvement of DOJ, I think that the ADA risks are near the top of the list. Libby, do you have a different viewpoint on that?
Here we go. I had to unmute. Thank you, Judge Carroll. I would just add with regard to security, Senator Moore, we are actively upgrading our video surveillance or monitoring capability. We also are upgrading our card access systems that are very much out of date. And further, the duress alarms are being addressed. And Judge Carroll previously mentioned hardening entrances and ballistic windows and doors to the extent possible. So we have focused our attention on 6 courthouses. We expect a report from our consultant by the end of the month. And then our hope is that at those 6 locations, we will begin construction perhaps September, early October, to take the steps necessary to enhance the security component. Judge Carroll is absolutely right with regard to the ADA, and I have nothing further to add in that regard, but we are actively pursuing those enhancements in the security arena that we are able to proceed with.
So I would agree the ADA is with the JOD looking at you, but also for the safety and entrance ways for other people within the building. But you know, I question if you had an incident in Bridgeport in that Golden Hill facility, are you able to lock down those courtrooms so that people don't have access?
We're not able to.
That's my concern.
Yeah, that's a big concern for us too. We brought it out when we earlier testified about that. Actually, it would have been in 2019, I believe, about that particular security incident when the General Assembly had required me to submit a branch-wide security review. We did that, and we highlighted the particular risks of certain facilities, such as the Golden Hill Street facility. You know how that shooting took place. A car quickly appeared in front of the building. Automatic gunfire erupted. Some 44 shots were fired. And if it had happened at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, all of those shots would have been directed at the very front entrance where people are lined up, sometimes 40 or 50 people deep, to be screened through our metal detector. It's a grossly inefficient way to do it. Representative Piscopo will know in the new courthouse up in Torrington, that building is designed to take those people inside, out of harm's way, where they can be carefully screened. We don't have that ability either on the Main Street Courthouse in Bridgeport or on the Golden Hill Street Courthouse in Bridgeport. There's significant upgrades that are needed. I am grateful that the Bonding Commission, before the pandemic struck, I believe, authorized 5, I'm not sure of the exact amount, but authorized funding to conduct feasibility studies for a new courthouse in Bridgeport and in New Haven. Those are the 2 areas where we have the greatest need for new facilities.
Is there any money in the Rescue Act that you could access?
I don't think for capital funding for building, maybe for one-time security enhancements, and I believe that we have in fact put in for some funding for security enhancements. We haven't done too well with our request for CRF funding. I hope we fare better with American Rescue Plan funding.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Senator.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moore. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chairman Boer. Hi, Judge Carroll. Very nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Representative Farrar. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that you're here because my interest is particularly around some of the IT improvements that you spoke of. And a question about your reference to the IT strategic plan. Is this a new strategic plan because of COVID? I'm just trying to understand the time frame of this strategic plan that you're referencing.
No, we have a very comprehensive strategic plan, and it's updated on a regular basis. I do have my Director of IT here, Don Turnbull, who might be able to add a little more specifics with respect to that. You will also, I'm sure it's no surprise to you, Representative Farrar, that as the pandemic struck, we had to be very nimble and very agile. Although we have conducted remote proceedings for some time now between the judicial branch, the courts, and the Department of Correction, and on a less structured, formal basis in conducting remote depositions and other types of proceedings. When the pandemic struck, we had to quickly adjust our proceedings to conduct virtually all of our proceedings by way of remote technology. And our IT department stood that process up in a matter of weeks. And I'm very proud of the job they've done. The courts never closed. We never stopped our ability to conduct business. We suspended operations in some locations, but those emergency operations that had to be conducted in person, we did them in person, and we quickly tried to transition as much of the other business to a virtual network as we possibly could, and we've done a good job in that. But I'd ask maybe Don Turnbull to just provide a little more information about our comprehensive technology plan.
Sure. Thank you, Judge Carroll and Representative Farrar. For the most part, I would say our long-term strategic plan includes items such as hardware upgrades, network upgrades, software upgrades. And as Judge Carroll alluded to earlier, one of the things that's been on there for quite some time is the legacy migration, our old systems that were created in the 70s. However, due to the pandemic, we've altered it a little bit because we've had more demand on our network, and that actually increased the risk with cybersecurity. So it's a little altered due to the past year with the pandemic.
Thank you, Don. And Judge Carroll, either you or Don might be able to answer this. I imagine even coming out of the pandemic, there will be more functions that the Judiciary Department is using that is in a remote form. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The example that I frequently cite is, I don't know if, I'm sure you haven't, Representative, but if anyone has ever been cited for a stop sign violation or a red light violation, if you want to contest that, you would have to go to your local courthouse, stand in line with 60 or 70 other people, lose a day's work, maybe wait for 3 or 4 hours to talk to a prosecutor, to negotiate a disposition, then appear before a judge or a magistrate. We have now migrated all of that to a virtual platform, where now if you want to contest a motor vehicle infraction, you can do it all online with a prosecutor and a judge, and it's worked flawlessly. Obviously, we're not going to go back to having 70 people stand in line. We've also been conducting court trials virtually. It's worked out very, very well. As a matter of fact, some of the judges say it's, in some respects, it's better to conduct a court trial online because when you're sitting on the bench, you have a side view of the witness. But when you're looking at your screen, when a witness is testifying, you get to see that witness face to face. And to the extent that, body language or something else may have a bearing on a witness's credibility, a judge likes to be able to see that. So I would say that there are very few things in my mind that we are conducting virtually now that we will not continue to conduct virtually when the pandemic ceases. That's not to say that we intend to close our doors, because we also recognize that there is a digital divide out there, and many folks don't have access to either high-speed internet service or other digital tools that they need to be able to access justice in our courts remotely. So I think that I think some people have said, while the pandemic may not have been the emergency that we wanted, in some respects, with respect to pushing us forward into the 21st century, it may have been the crisis that we needed to do that. And that certainly has proven to be the case in the judicial branch.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Judge Carroll, because I see it very similarly to even our discussions on telehealth, you know, where if you think about the barriers that can often exist, I know in my professional career in working with women in civil court cases, you know, there's a range of barriers that can exist sometimes for low-income women to access the court system. And I'm encouraged by your commentary of trying to keep some of what's working.
And you're probably aware of the fact that through the pandemic, we created a system to allow for the remote application for temporary restraining orders in domestic violence cases. Those types of issues, the ability to continue those also on dissolution of marriage cases, the ability to not require parties to come in to court for jurisdictional purposes when there's an agreement. Those are contained in our court operations bill. Our goal is to make those permanent, and I'm hopeful that that will receive favorable action, first by the Judiciary Committee and then by both houses.
Thank you, Judge. Just one final question in regards to the technology plan. With the request that has been made for bonding, can you share how many years is that bonding request kind of into what you feel like you need? Is it kind of in full getting you to where you need to go in the next 2 years, or is it combined with unallocated balances? I'm trying to understand what is new money versus what's been unallocated in the past.
I'm going to let Libby respond, but I'm going to try to say what she's explained to me, that the governor asked us to limit our request to those types of projects that could be completed within the biennium. So there are specific requests that we've made. We believe we can complete those within the biennium, not the ADA comprehensive revisions to all of our buildings, but certainly the studying the 38 courthouses, the 38 buildings we have, to make determinations as to what we need to do to become ADA compliant. And Libby, is there any more detail that needs to be added to that?
You're on mute.
Thank you very much. Trying to prevent that echo.
No problem.
So with regard to our pending requests, we do have approximately $8 million pending in the infrastructure line item. And Judge Carroll, you're correct. Those are for activities that we can execute within the biennium. We really try to zone in on what's possible, what's doable, and move to the finish line in that regard. With regard to the $5 million requested under the IT category, as my colleague Don indicated, those are for platform improvements, network modernization, the legacy system replacement work, and also included in that particular request are over $1 million in upgrading our telephone system, which too is incredibly out of date. So we feel confident we can make significant progress over the 2 fiscal years in that arena with regard to the requested funding. And the final request we previously addressed, and that is the security improvements, and we have an active plan to expend those dollars during the biennium. So it is, as Judge Carroll indicated, in response to Governor Lamont's request to seek funding for which we can achieve and complete the work in the next 2 years or so. That's our goal.
Thank you. I would imagine, though, you know, with these IT improvements, there will be continual effort put into how that can really serve the constituents and residents of the state moving forward. So I'm sure that'll be an ongoing request, I hope, into the future to keep the IT infrastructure up and running once you've made those investments. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Great questions, Representative Farrar. Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Judge Carroll, thank you for being here, and everybody with you. Appreciate it.
Always good to see you, Representative Piscopo.
I'll start with a compliment. I like your attitude on maintenance. You're calling it routine maintenance. You've got a schedule down, and that's just so important. We're going through what we call deferred maintenance, which means that it hasn't been done, and we're playing catch up. So, and then that's always been and that's always, I wish we could eliminate that word, deferred maintenance, from our going forward. But yeah, in fact, that's our Senate chair, the Senate chairs of this committee, the full committees. That was always his big thing that he always harped on. And it happens to be our Senate ranking members issue too. But anyway, it's not unforeseen maintenance, maybe, and I'm going to bite my tongue when I ask this question. I probably don't want to jinx anything, but it's common for a new structure to have some sort of unforeseen maintenance. Is before we cancel Torrington, are we all set there? Is the building sound?
Well, that's good. I think that Torrington is it's the shining star in all of our courthouse facilities right now. You know, we had a relatively new, when I say a new court building, anything that's about 20 years old is a new court building as far as I'm concerned. We had our new court building in Stamford, which shortly after we opened it, we had an incredible water leakage problem with inclement weather. I mean, it was terrible, got into the floors and whatnot. And of course, by the time that we sought to repair the building, all of the LLCs and corporate entities that built the construction had disappeared into the vapor. But I'm not aware of any issues that we have in Torrington. It's a beautiful facility, as you know. Laura and Libby, are there any current issues that we have in Torrington that you're aware of?
No, Judge Carroll, we're in good shape in Torrington, and that's why we feel confident that we can offer those funds back, as they're not needed for any immediate repairs or any foreseeable issues that we have in that location.
That too is welcome news. How old is your Fairfield courthouse? I thought that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have a long memory like I do, Representative Piscopo, so you think it's a relatively new building. The building on Main Street, which is the JD building, that has to be at least 45 years old. Maybe, actually, I can remember back when I was in high school that we did a field trip there. So it's at least 50 years old, I can tell you that. And the Golden Hill Street Courthouse was built in, I think, in the 1870s, right after the Civil War. And believe me, when you walk in, it looks like a building that was built in the 1870s. The staff and the judges that work there have great patience, and they do a great job. And particularly our marshals who provide security there, they're the best. They're careful, they're vigilant, and they do a great job.
Thank you again, Judge.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative Piscopo. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Judge Carroll. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Senator. Good to see you.
I think John sort of set the table a little bit here regarding my concern regarding deferred maintenance. I grew up in a construction family, and currently I'm a real estate broker, so I see the deferment on an ongoing basis. And my question is regarding your ADA compliance checklist and I guess the report that will give you a sort of an idea of what you still need to do. Do you have something similar regarding the 38 buildings that you have as a report to tell you, okay, listen, we have a 40-year-old facility here, and here's what it needs to have done within the next 2 to 3 years, 5 years, etc. And then along with that, the budget number for each of those buildings?
I would say on a comprehensive basis, we do not. I would say on a general basis, we do. But among the funds that we are seeking in this request is funding for us to complete a 38 building comprehensive assessment of what those ADA needs are That's what we have told the Department of Justice we will do. And quite honestly, that's what they expect that we will do. And after that is completed, we'll be able to put a budget on the cost of those repairs and set up a timeline. My hope is that the Department of Justice will understand the constraints that we're operating under when they see the massive cost that I believe will be associated with making these upgrades, and that they will be cooperative with us in granting us time to get those repairs and upgrades completed.
So that report is solely for the ADA compliance issues, but how
Yes.
about the rest of the building? With I'm sure part of the building may be included in the ADA compliance issues, but there are other parts of the building that may not. So I guess what I'm looking for is, gee, in addition to the ADA, are there additional renovation work that may be required in each of those buildings?
Sure. I think that it would be best, Senator, if I handed that over to our facilities division, who I know stays on top of the individualized needs of all of our buildings. It will come as no surprise to you that buildings of the age that many of our courts are, we have regular elevator, HVAC, and plumbing issues. But Laura and Libby, can you give the Senator a little more clarity as to how we track what needs to be done in each building?
Yes, thank you, Judge Carroll. And Senator Martin, we do have staff maintaining some buildings, but the majority of our buildings are maintained by property managers. On an annual basis, we review with them the needs that are required to keep the building up to snuff. Certainly, we prioritize and address those needs as our budget allows to take care of the building. For those items that we can't attend to, that goes on to the larger master update list that we have. We regularly have a $60, $70, $80 million project list that would allow us to take care of roofs and masonry and HVAC and so on and so forth. So yes, we do have a review process in place, and we have a terrific partnership with our property managers and of course our own maintenance staff, so that we can take care of what's needed and also plan for what is needed in the future.
Okay, great. Good to know. Thank you, Elizabeth. Judge, thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Martin. Representative Clarius, I'm going to let Representative Duchette go, anybody who hasn't spoken for the first time, and then I'll come back to you, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can.
Hi. Hi, Judge Carroll. Good to see you and everyone else there. Senator Martin asked most of my question. I was going to ask if there is, I imagine there is, it sounds like there is internally, but if there is sort of a long-term capital plan needs assessment across all the facilities.
I'm sure there is. I'm looking to see what, if anything, we can include it in our materials. Lib, can you provide a little more clarity in response to that question? We have a prioritized. Okay.
Yes, I certainly can. And we can supply information to you, Representative, because that is something that we rely on to help guide our work over, a 12-month period, a 24-month period, and even beyond. So we'll share with you our our capital improvement plan and send that over under separate cover.
That would be great. Yeah, I would be very interested to see that. And as a follow-up to that, I'm curious, there are some facilities that still remain closed because of COVID. Is that correct?
Well, I always like to say that none of our facilities are closed. There are some of our facilities where we've suspended operations. And we did that for a couple of reasons. We wanted to do that to make sure that we made the wisest use of our security staff out of fear that there might be an outbreak. As a matter of fact, there were, I think, 84 of our marshals tested positive over the last 12 months. So we needed to limit the number of buildings for which they were providing security. But the answer to your question is that there are 5 buildings where we're not conducting court operations, but we still have staff reporting to those facilities. And by and large, those are 1 and 2 courtroom locations. Enfield is a 1-court location. Norwalk is a 2-court location. Derby is a 3-judge location. The New London GA has 2 judges assigned there. And I believe we have one court up in Wyndham that is currently not open for judicial operations, but staff does continue to report there.
Is Manchester back open?
It is not. I'm sorry. Manchester is another one.
That's
I
the
should
one.
have mentioned. You're absolutely right. But staff is reporting there on a daily basis, and the Manchester cases are currently being heard both in Hartford and in Towland. But we're probably going to be making some movements on that soon.
Okay.
But every time, it's funny. Every time we hope that we can expand operations, this is particularly true with respect to commencing jury trials, we get this bad news about the virus itself. I see the CDC came out about 20 minutes ago with a recommendation to all states to resume masking requirements. So this new variant that is circulating around the country, and specifically here in Connecticut, is very contagious. So we have to be responsive and agile when those types of information come to us. So to the extent that perhaps I was hopeful that we might be able to open Manchester and put the judges back in there and start conducting business, I think we have to take those steps, guided always by the public health guidelines, because my goal is to keep you safe if you come in to one of our buildings, to keep our staff safe, and to keep our judges safe. And we've done a pretty good job on that.
Absolutely. No, understood. And that was part of the reason I was asking. I mean, we're all hearing about our local experiences here in our communities, and I had heard concern that Manchester, the building remained closed, and questions as to when it was going to reopen. In terms of what we're talking about today, though, and the capital needs of these buildings, do you anticipate for those, deferred maintenance, like Senator Martin said, there's probably going to be some deferred maintenance due to the closure of these buildings?
Well, we, like everybody else in state government, when the pandemic hit, we retrofitted all of our facilities with plexiglass, moved furniture, made accommodations to make sure that we could maintain social distancing. I think for the short term, we're going to keep those measures in place. With respect to deferred maintenance, sadly, simply because of the ebb and flow of funding to underwrite the cost of making those repairs, we're always going to have deferred maintenance expenses. I cite the elevators all the time. I jokingly, you step into an elevator in the Main Street Courthouse in Bridgeport or the Judicial District Courthouse in New Haven, you'd be well advised to bring some snacks with you in the event that you get stuck there. It has happened, and that's a terribly frightening thing to be looking at on a daily basis. But it's something that we're always mindful of, and we're always trying to stay on top of those issues.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a concern here as well as we look at these things. We want to obviously help you to be ahead of those things, and before it gets to the point that whether it's Manchester or another one of these sort of smaller, maybe underutilized facilities, right, that we get to the point where we are saying, oh no, there's too much to be done, or we're talking about closing buildings or anything like that. So yeah, I'd be interested in see sort of the longer term, facilities plan and what we might be able to do to help to facilitate those needs. But
we'll get that to you, Representative.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Carroll, would you mind sending that to myself and Senator Moore, and we'll get that out to everybody?
We'll get on it right away. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now Representative Nicole Claridis, teacher.
Thank you for the second time, Madam Chair. Judge Carroll, I saw that you used the courthouses used Microsoft Teams video during the pandemic. How did that work out?
Worked out much better than I anticipated, to be perfectly honest with you. It worked out great. People frequently ask us, why did you choose Teams over Zoom? I think that Zoom is more commonly used in consumer type applications. But we use Teams because it integrates flawlessly with our digital audio recording system in the courts called FTR. All of the proceedings that we conduct by way of Teams are proceedings on the record. So we must maintain a digital audio recording of it. And our IT did a very comprehensive assessment of what the better platform was, and we landed on the Teams platform. And I speak to my colleagues around the country, and I found that it's fairly split. Jurisdictions using Teams and using Zoom, but Teams has worked out very well for us.
Great. And since it worked out so well, do you see yourself possibly continue using it a little bit post-pandemic once you're back in person as a complement to in person?
We absolutely do.
Good.
It would be foolish not to. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Judge.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Carroll. Senator Moore.
I just want to, Judge Carroll, I was thinking about the master plan also, so I think that would really be helpful on how we can help you.
Great.
I wondered about the consequence of not being compliant for ADA.
So do I. And when you have United States attorneys from the Department of Justice contacting you on a regular basis, that worries us as well. Eventually what they could do would be to commence a suit against the state, compelling us to do certain things. I don't want that to happen. I want to continue to work with the Department of Justice on a cooperative basis. I want them to understand the challenges that we as a branch and as a state face. That's why we made certain that the Attorney General's office was involved with us in our most recent discussions. But I do have Attorney Martin Libin and Attorney Joe Del Campo on the line, Senator. Perhaps they would be able to give a more refined answer as to what the consequences of noncompliance might be. Martin and Joe, can you shine some light on that for Senator Moore?
Sure. Thank you, Judge. This is Martin Libin. As Judge Carroll indicated, failure to comply, once we reach an agreement, and at this point, we do not have a written agreement with them. What we had is originally back in 2018, they did a walkthrough with their expert, ADA expert of the New Haven JD Courthouse. And about 6 months later, they came up with a comprehensive report of every single, violation, whether it was a coat hook that was too high for a person who was in a wheelchair, it was a table which wasn't an inch too short in order to get a wheelchair to fit underneath it, a toilet where the toilet paper, a bathroom where a stall where toilet paper might be too far back to the wall or what have you. And basically they came through and said, these are all the issues. Now, some of them we can remediate ourselves, but this really is a study about accessibility. What is necessary for a person to get in, starting with whatever our parking lot may be. In New Haven, we had an offsite parking lot. They said it had gravel that we were renting. One of the parking lots, or one of the state spots had a gravel. They said, well, that's not satisfactory. A space where we rented parking spaces, they said they didn't qualify in terms of the number of handicap accessible parking spaces, and they were not wide enough under the current standards based on the age of the building. So they went through a very detailed measuring, taking pictures, and sent us that detailed report. And basically what they've asked is, some of these things are ones that require a physical change in order to comply. Some are, it's program accessibility. So for some of them, we may be able to provide that program service in some other format that would make it accessible without having to do a physical change. So it requires an evaluation. They now want us to evaluate, as Judge Carroll said, all of the buildings, including those that we rent, not just those that we own. So it's a total of 43 buildings in order to say what it is. And that's what they're looking at as a first step in terms of a resolution. It goes to their original thought of saying, okay, within X amount of time, assess all the buildings, then repair them all within 2 years. They said, you know what, let's break this down into steps. Let's have you do the studies of all the buildings, send us copies of those, recognizing that once we get a report, we have to go out to bid to find out what a cost estimate is. We can't, just because we know what they're saying may not be compliant, we don't know what the estimated cost of repairing or renovating or changing the programs and facilities to make them into another building. Not everything requires a physical change. We may be able to move something from one building to another to make it accessible. We may be able to make certain courtrooms accessible and not have to do the entire building by limiting what what's done in those rooms. But ultimately, as Judge Carroll said, they can bring a lawsuit, go to federal court, and mandate. And we don't want to become like DCF under federal court supervision for the next 20 years, trying to get our buildings at a state. And I will say that a concern I personally have, while this is dealing with access to courthouses, is I suspect every other state building in the executive branch and probably the LOB as well in the Capitol would face similar issues if they decided to require the state to do assessments of every building that the state occupies.
It does remind me, as like, once you get DCF in your life, they're in your life.
Well, that's why we want to try to work with them and avoid a 20-year
So I know once you get
them.
the federal government in your life, they're in your life, you know? So I think this is
Well,
really
I will
important to
say
take
we
care
have
of it.
had a very cooperative relationship. There was some issues several years earlier. We worked with one of the same U.S. attorneys out of the same office, Dave Nelson, and it had to do with policies, procedures, and you know, it was resolved without there being with just us agreeing to adopt some specific policies with respect to how we were going to handle medical records and continuances and issues like that. So we have worked very cooperatively with them in the past without the necessity of a formal settlement agreement. This one is a little bit further, so it's going to require an actual agreement. The other one was just a letter of agreement saying, okay, we're going to do this. And they just dropped the matter saying, okay, we see your policies, they're fine with us. And you know, so we have a long history of working with them and them working with us cooperatively.
Well,
So
I believe I speak for our entire committee that we want to make sure we don't get to that place, and we want to be able to help you. So you've got to let us know where we can help you in that area.
I think one of the reasons we've been lucky, Senator, is that we have been incredibly responsive to every inquiry made by the Department of Justice. So if their level of scrutiny goes higher and they start looking at executive or legislative branch facilities, I would urge that same level of responsiveness, because if there's delay in responding or lack of cooperation, I think that will come back and hurt us. So we've been certain to maintain the highest level of cooperation. It's one of the very few items that Attorney Libben is still working on for us, but he's established a relationship with the DOJ personnel, and as a result of that, they've been patient and cooperative with us.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, thank you, Senator Moore. And just to echo what the senator said, of course, we want to be supportive in those efforts. Just going back to the general maintenance, did you talk about, I'm not sure if I missed it, energy efficiency as you move forward and you make improvements to the facilities?
I know that we're active on the governor's green energy task force, I believe, but Libby would probably be better positioned to respond more comprehensively to that. Lib?
Yep, thank you, Judge Carroll. Yes, we are participating in the governor's initiative voluntarily and have executed projects along the lines of LED replacement lighting, shading the windows to prevent the building from heating up from the sunlight, that sort of thing. And that's embedded in the work that we have. It's not a standalone, standout project, but it's part of our work in routine process, replacing, again, the light bulbs and whatnot to any energy efficient bulbs. The larger issues we're working in conjunction with the governor's initiative, and to the extent possible, we'll take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. For example, there may be an opportunity to piggyback on the electric car charging station initiative that they've been sharing information with us about. So we're monitoring that very carefully. So in the event that we're making any renovations, and if it is opportune and the resources are there, we'll marry up and make sure we take advantage of those opportunities.
Sure, great. That sounds great. I know in all the agencies we meet with, you know, we hear a lot about capital improvements that are needed, and I just hope we're all looking at it with an environmentally friendly lens to make sure, you know, it's more efficient down the road, because it's actually, we look at them as investments, not an expense.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any other comments or questions, so we want to really thank you for your time today. Thank you for being flexible and coming on a little early. It's been a great dialogue. We look forward to receiving the additional and supplemental information, and we're always here as a resource for you. So thank you, Judge Carroll and your team for coming.
I thank all members of the committee for their courtesy this afternoon. We'll get that information to you right away.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tom, I believe, or Christine, that is our last agency, correct?
We're good.
Okay, so then we're all back together on Wednesday. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.